Welcome to the Backlash, a weekly discussion about the past, present, and future of Western civilization. I am your host, Rebecca Hargraves. We got a lot of people here today. We got some explaining to the audience to do.
Oh, really?
I think so, yeah. Flanked to my right by the wonderful Dave Riley. Dave, how are you?
I'm doing great.
You're great?
Just had a baby this week.
I know. Congratulations.
You had a baby?
I had a baby. Yeah. Well, not me. You know what I mean.
Yeah.
So funny story. I was supposed to watch Dave's Kids. He texted me at like 12:30. I missed the message. And then I woke up at, 1:15, checked my text messages, and he was like, oh, it already happened. It's cool. It's just an hour. And his wife is just going about her business like nothing ever happened. She is just an incredible woman.
Yeah.
Just
she
a
is
wonderful
the
woman.
best.
And she made us cookies.
She
Fresh
did,
baked,
yeah.
perfectly baked chocolate chip cookies. I had like 4 of them. I was finishing one up before we went live here, before this intro ended. We have Cameron in studio.
Yep.
In the flesh.
In the flesh.
Welcome to the Fight Club, ladies and gentlemen.
We're trying to convince him to move here so that he can be in studio.
Well, it's where all the male
time.
pregnancies are happening. So
That's right.
Yeah, maybe I should.
Dave was the catalyst.
That's right.
This is great. And we are joined today by a very special guest, Alex Rosen, who's on the program with us tonight.
Alex Rosen, what's up, man?
How's it going? Thanks for having me on. We really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. It was a little bit of a fight getting a hold of you here and there, and then last week fell through, so you're here this week, so thanks for coming on. I Fight for Kids is his Twitter account. You might know him from Twitter, and he has done great work. I've been following you for a while. I've been seeing a lot of videos come out of you going after pedophiles, and a lot of the cases that you pursue lead to arrests. So why don't you give us some statistics on how many arrests you've some of your actions have led to? I think he's going to get.
He's out of here. He's going to get a whiteboard right there.
Wait, say that one more time.
Yeah, give us some statistics on how many cases that you've pursued that have led to like arrests. Like tell people what you do.
Well, so we have a group called Predator Poachers where we catch online child predators across the country. And we've been doing this since 2019. And typically the way we do it is we pose as a minor online, and predators from across the country message us under the assumption we're a minor. It's kind of like the show To Catch a Predator, but instead of waiting for them to come to a house, we just do it anywhere in the country or in any location. Catch online child predators across the country.
Oh, we got a little feedback there. Oh, is that okay? You got it?
We're good.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right, we're good. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, so our work has led to arrests in 46 different states, convictions in 40, including in Idaho.
Based.
And
Awesome.
yeah, Idaho's
Boise,
pretty good.
I'm assuming, right? Boise.
Oh, dude, Boise PD is awesome. No, I'm just kidding. But
Yeah.
we actually do have. Let me try to think. We have a Sean Berry doing time in Boise now because we caught him. He was a sex offender on the registry. Well, obviously on the registry, and he had child pornography. We caught him in January of 2022, and then we caught an individual in, I want to say November or something like that, named Michael McNary, and he went to jail for a probation violation. I think he's out right now. But he invited an 11-year-old girl over to his halfway house. He was in a halfway house because of domestic violence. And then we have also in Wallace in the past year, an individual named Dylan Landreth that got arrested. That's on I-90, an hour from Coeur d'Alene, I think. And we have other arrests in Idaho too. It's kind of skipping me right now, but if I took a look at all the cities, I'd remember. But yeah,
That's crazy.
We get around.
Wallace, Idaho. That's like they're the center of the universe.
They are the center of the universe.
Wait, why do they call it the center of the universe?
Because it is, Vince.
Is it literally
it's
the center?
the center, at least it's the center of like the Pacific Northwest and the history of the Pacific North, like the founding and the mining industry, the train lines that came across from Chicago all came through there. So it's a really important spot, especially for Idaho. I think it was also our first capital.
That's crazy.
Before it got moved around, or it was in contention.
Burned to the ground.
Wallace, Idaho.
Yeah.
That's
Now,
crazy. You came up to Wallace. Go
Alex, did you hear about the? There was near Wallace, just next door in Kellogg. There was this unbelievable thing that happened. Major John Kaler. He was a father. He had 2 or 3 young kids, and his downstairs neighbor's son was like masturbating and looking at his daughters, and he told him to stop. And the guy didn't stop. The parents did nothing. Nobody did anything to correct the kid's behavior. He was a problem child in school. The school knew that he was a freak when it comes to the sexual deviancy stuff. They did nothing to him. They called the police. The police did nothing. And then they caught the kid doing it again on Father's Day, and Major John had a blackout. He went nuts, grabbed his gun, and murdered the entire family. Did you hear about that?
No, I did not.
Well, it happened. It's crazy.
Okay.
That's crazy. I didn't even hear about that.
Yes, it was wild. Yep. Had a blackout.
Yeah, right. Well,
What was one of the
Yeah, literally.
So yeah, kind of like To Catch a Predator, except you literally tackle like pedophiles. You were a former football player, right? You played in college?
Well, what do you mean by play? I was on a college team, if that's what you're asking.
Oh, so you didn't play much? You were kind of
I was on a college team, okay? We'll just leave it at that.
All right.
But
it's a sensitive topic. Sensitive.
Look, as Brian Scalabrine would say, he was also a bench player in the NBA. In 30 years, it wouldn't really matter if I played or not. I was on the team. That's what counts,
Right.
okay?
Yeah.
But, so I played college football my first year of college. And going into the summer of our second year, that's when I started doing this. We had three weeks off, and I just kind of fucked off my whole schedule. Like, I went to bed at 10 p.m., woke up at 5 a.m. like every day during the school year and just completely threw that in the trash when summer came. And I just started doing this, fell in love with it. Always wanted to be a cop. I was probably just going to do 2 years of college and go to the academy anyway. But this took off, and we started doing this. But yeah, as for tackling the pedos, I mean, that only happened one time just recently. This was the first time a pedo put hands on me. But, he dropped his phone when he was running away, and I just picked it up. And he tried to charge me, and he got picked up and thrown to the ground.
Yeah, there's a tweet. I saw some screenshots on your Twitter of you, like, literally. Were you a defensive lineman or offensive lineman, or were you a lineman?
I played offensive line.
Offense. Okay. Well, you did pretty good job tackling him. I mean, you threw him down like a rag doll.
Yeah, there's no way I'd let a pedo physically dominate me.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
So you use Grindr, right?
Is that what you use?
Well, not to catch pedos. No, I'm just kidding. But, Grindr's an app we use sometimes. Usually the sickest people. I mean, look, I'm not even saying this because we don't like the libtards. I'm saying this because it's just true. Blue Sky has been the biggest cesspool of pedos that we've ever seen. Grindr, I mean, it's honestly not too bad compared to some of the other apps, but Blue Sky is extremely fucked up. But we do have our longest sentence, or at least tied for our longest sentence, was from Grindr. We caught a guy, Mark Mallow, in 2023. He was a middle school teacher who was out on bond for child pornography because like the feds caught him or something like that. But he was hitting up our 14-year-old boy account on Grindr. It's not like we just kind of made the account to see who the hell would be out there. It wasn't like we were planning this guy for a while. And he gave his real phone number like an idiot, and I tracked who he was, and I'm like, no fucking way. He's doing it while he's out on bond. So we approach him. He admits to pornography as young as babies and toddlers again while he's out on bond, and to soliciting the 14-year-old boy for sex. And right now he's doing 131 years in the Texas DOC, and he's eligible for parole in like 50 years. So he's pretty much fucked.
So what's your process for getting these people in the flesh?
Well, I mean, we just pose as kids online, and they kind of come to us. I mean, there's not really too much that goes into it besides that, I'd say. I mean,
I don't even know what Blue Sky is. Is that a dating app?
Well, Blue Sky was this like leftist app that was created several years ago. It was mostly like an Antifa organizing social media platform.
Yeah, really?
And then after Elon bought Twitter, all of like the SPLC journalists, all of those guys made the switch over to Blue Sky Social. It was like supposed to be a decentralized. I think it actually kind of started in the Bitcoin community, but it's clearly gotten way, way out of hand.
My kids have TikTok's another big one. My kids have accounts and stuff, and for sports and whatever. My daughter plays volleyball, son plays baseball, and every now and again, you have to pay attention because every now and again you'll see someone sneak in the followers, and then you go to like their profile, and it's like, here's my thing. From what I've seen, it seems like gay male also equals pedophile. That's what it seems like. Like it also like that. That's what it could like. Gay equals pedophile, like on the male side.
Right.
So it's they probably have plenty of content to get to. You'll never be not busy, from what I can see.
No, definitely not. And we've noticed with the gays, I mean, it's just so easy to catch a pedo of any orientation, but we've definitely noticed with the gays, they're always going to have child pornography. There's one video that goes around the gay community, or the gay child porn community. I'm sorry, I'm sounding redundant when I say that, but and it's called Matt Estes. And I've only heard about this from interviewing a pedo who's honest. Like this one pedo we caught in Detroit, Michigan. His name was Jarvis. God damn it. I'm trying. His last name's kind of slipping me right now, but we caught him a few months ago at the anime convention in Detroit, which, shocker. But he was dabbling in child pornography groups, and he was just extremely honest about just everything. Like one of the few honest pedos we've caught. And, we didn't want to get him. We didn't want to call Detroit PD because for obvious reasons, they probably wouldn't show up, wouldn't do anything. So we convinced him to go to his adopted parents' house in East Point, Michigan, which is in Macomb County, which really nails him to the wall. And we took him there. That's when we called the cops for possession of child pornography. And he was just telling me about all this shit, like what to look for with the gay code words and all that shit. So they worship this video called Matt Estes that I heard from him of this guy in a football 94 jersey abusing his infant little brother. And, so basically now when we see hashtag 94 online or, whatever, we know that these are people who are deep into child pornography and we target them accordingly.
Hashtag 94. That's interesting.
Here's my question, Alex. So years ago, there was a pretty popular YouTuber. I think he went by the moniker Mouthy Buddha, and he made a series on Pedogate. This is like 2 or 3 videos. I don't know if you ever watched it. It was quite compelling and extremely disturbing. But if you watched his content, it was he suggested that pedophilia was a global network, that it was organized, that there was collusion with various government agencies. Have you seen any evidence of that? Have you stumbled upon an organizational structure in that community, if that's what you want to call it?
In the gay community. No.
Yeah.
In the gay community specifically, or the pedophile?
No, just pedophile.
Pedophilia.
Like networks. Have you ever come across networks instead of like individual cases?
In a way, we've definitely caught people that were following each other on Instagram, that traded with each other and all of that stuff. Like we had a guy, Brandon Scott Allen, in Tucson in 2023. We caught him in the county because Tucson PD doesn't do anything, but Pima County sheriffs are awesome. I don't know why the discrepancy is the same fucking county. But Brandon Scott Allen was meeting who he thought was going to be a 9-year-old girl. He gets arrested for that and had child pornography as well. And, he was following this individual on Instagram named Jeffrey Rose in Las Vegas. And Jeffrey was one of the sickest motherfuckers we've caught. He's doing 20 to life right now. You can look it up. His name, just type in Predator Poachers Las Vegas, Jeffrey Rose. I mean, an article will come up about him. He was just fucked up. Jeffrey Rose, he was one of the biggest child pornography peddlers we ever caught. When we caught him, he admitted to having 50,000 images of child porn. And the kicker about Jeffrey Rose was that he went to jail for life for molesting a bunch of children. But some way, somehow, he scored himself an appeal or a retrial. So he was out of custody when we caught him, obviously. But he had an ankle monitor on, and he had trial set for like July 2023, and we caught him in like April 2023. So obviously the retrial didn't happen. And, his excuse to me was like, I'm just saving all these files because I was going to turn them into the FBI. And, of course, there wasn't any files with FBI on them or anything like that. And then he ends up admitting to jerking off to pornography as young as babies. And what's crazy about Jeffrey is he admitted to all that child pornography, admitted to texting the 9-year-old girl, but he would never come out clean and say he molested those kids that he went to prison for. And even though he had 50,000 child porn images while he was awaiting trial, he couldn't even control himself for a couple months. But yeah, but they were following each other. I'm sure they've traded with each other, and we've had some other instances where we catch like an online friend of the pedo. But as for like an international network of like politicians or anything like that, we have not come across that. Not saying it's not there.
That Mouthy Buddha series was awesome. It was.
I
awesome.
remember that.
Very well done. I remember that too. That's old school. That's OG.
Disturbing.
Very disturbing.
We have a clip we want to play here.
Yeah.
This is Alex Rosen catching head of LGBTQ plus Democrats of Maryland. Let's play this clip. It's 50 seconds here. Let's see.
Anyway, you're the head of the LGBTQ Dems in Maryland. Okay. How long have you been in that position for? Since fall. Okay. Is that like a paid position? Okay. Just more of a volunteer type thing. Is it like a super PAC or something, or is it just okay? This stuff said here, like, you know, I want to rape you. I want to see how much of a faggot you are. What was kind of said about that?
I hope you try to get away once I start fucking you.
Yeah.
I like the fantasy, and he seemed to enjoy it. And I didn't know this person, and I never intended to meet him.
Do you think that's appropriate though? Like,
No, of course. No, of course.
I mean, here we said it's okay if you want to jerk off looking at it, talking about your dick. And you said, stop by this morning so I can stretch your hole, faggot. Can't wait to make you my little and this was later that, or shit, 4 days later with no response. Can't wait to make you my little cum dump, baby boy. Okay.
What?
Yeah, they
the
always and every video that I've seen of yours, I've watched probably over 100 of your videos, and every video that I've seen, they always try to like back up and say like, "Oh, I never meant to meet with this person. I never meant to meet with this person." But right off the bat, you guys tell them like their age, right? Like what your age is.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, there hasn't been a single instance where we get a pedo going after, unless we're posing as a parent of a kid. There's not a single case where we're getting a pedo just going after someone who they think is over 18. They're always there to have sex with the kid. And even when they don't meet up, like Michael Knappen, that head of the LGBTQ Dems of Maryland, he did not meet up with the kid, but he gave his address for the kid to come over, talking about, I don't want to meet up. But yeah, no, there's no, when we're putting someone on the internet, we know it's like a nuke on their life. So we still have to do it in an ethical way. So I'm not going to, even if it's a gray area, I wouldn't do it. Like I only do it when I know for sure that they're what they are. And so I have no issue publishing people like that because I know for sure they're doing it.
Right. There's a lot of accusations about people like you who say like you screw up the case or whatever because, you know, entrapment is sort of like a fine line. Do you want to clarify?
Absolutely. So first and foremost, there's cases that have only been possible because of our work. So we had a guy, Bradley Johnson, in not Fort Smith, Arkansas, in Rogers, Arkansas, this past summer, and he was talking to our decoys for 3 years, multiple underage kids for 3 years, but he never got sexual. So talking to a minor online is sadly not illegal, even if he's kind of being flirty, like you're cute, this and that. He wouldn't cross the line to get into criminality, but you know, he had the app Telegram, and that's usually a telltale sign they're going to be into child pornography. So if we were to turn those messages into the cops and say, oh, can you do anything about this? They legally could not. They couldn't even go talk to him about it because he didn't commit a crime or there's no probable cause he did commit a crime. But as private citizens, we can go to his door and have an interview with him. So he comes out, and obviously, you know, in his mind, he's like, oh, I'm in trouble because I was talking to these kids, even though if he only admitted to talking to the kids, nothing would happen to him. But he ends up admitting to having a ton of child pornography on his computer. And I don't know if his case is going federal or not, but I know I mean, he got arrested for it. I don't know. They say they might push it federal based on how much child pornography there was on his computer. But, you know, I kind of like my in was like, hey, man, let's talk about these kids. And then he's like, well, yeah, I've been put into some groups. I've seen this stuff. And he describes videos of babies and toddlers getting raped that he's viewed. And now the cops have every reason to arrest him. So that conversation would not have happened if it was only law enforcement. It was because of us that whole thing happened, that the whole arrest happened. And shit, we got a guy, Kevin Cook, in Jewel, Iowa. He's doing 25 years right now for child molestation because we were posing as a father, basically a pedo dad, and he invited us over to quote unquote play with his kid. And he invited us over to come over on Sunday of that week when he had custody of her. But obviously we don't want to go when she's actually home. So we went a few days before, just kind of surprised him at his house. He ends up admitting to me that he molests his daughter. And
I remember that video.
Describes the stuff he does. Yeah. Now he's doing 25 years for it. We got a guy, Roy Dubuque, in September of this past year. Maryland's one of those states. That's why Michael Knappen didn't get arrested, the head of the LGBTQ Dems. Our chat logs cannot be used. Our chat logs cannot be used in court, but you know, admissions of child pornography and molestation obviously can in any state. So Roy Dubuque comes, meets our 12-year-old decoy, ends up admitting to me that he molested his niece when she was 3 years old. She's 18 now, and he gets arrested for all these rape counts because of that video admission. And it turns out 10 years ago, they investigated him for molesting his niece, but he didn't confess at the time. There wasn't enough evidence. I don't know what it was, but they reopened the case because of our video. And now he's going to spend the rest of his life in prison because of it. So to say that we hurt cases is just naive. All y'all got to do is just watch the videos. And then as for entrapment, one, technically, since we're not law enforcement, we can't entrap, but, I still understand, like, we can't just be like, oh, I'm horny and alone in the hotel room, come at me. Like, we don't do any of that. I mean, if people were to read our chat logs, we are so dry. We text so dryly. Like, we're just like, okay, if you want to, okay, sure. Never has have any of our cases been thrown out because we quote unquote entrap them. Even defense attorneys, like, they bring up a lot of shit, but they never have brought up you coaxed them into doing this at all. I mean, we chat very dryly. I'd say probably more dryly than cops do.
Have you collected any unofficial demographic data on who these pedophiles are? How often are they Jewish?
You being one of the last based.
Yeah. No, I hate to tell you all, but most of them are like white, and I guess I don't really consider them conservative because a lot of them are just jobless and fucking losers. But they vote more right wing if you consider Trump even right wing, which I kind of don't. But that being said, the reason for that is because Jews aren't on the online space too much. They're doing that weird shit with the mattress under the sewers or whatever. But the most I think we've caught is Isaac Cantor in Indianapolis. And he was off Blue Sky, surprise, surprise. And we caught him in December. And I don't know if y'all seen it, but he was throwing a mega tantrum about being caught. He was kvetching about it. And Indianapolis PD didn't do jack shit, didn't take his phone, didn't do anything, which really pissed me the fuck off. These big cities suck dick. And then in 2023, we caught an Orthodox Jew named Shlomo Goldberg. He can't even make it up in fucking New York. And he came to go meet the mom and the 12-year-old daughter, and he had a shit ton of child porn as well.
Oh my gosh. What was the worst? I dare to ask, what was the worst case?
Nope.
No,
She doesn't even want to
No,
go.
just try
enough.
to be non-specific.
Okay, well, we don't need it. We don't need it. I mean, we've heard some pretty bad cases already. I remember.
I will say the worst case is one that we have not caught yet. I guess I won't get into too much detail, but he is. He I'll just say I don't even get taken aback anymore by like listening to their phone calls with the decoys or chatting with them. I'm chatting with this guy, and basically one of my decoys doing the video calls with him. I'll just say, like, there is no age limit for the guy and what he would do, and I mean no age limit. Like, I'm talking even like out of the like, there's no age limit. Like, I've seen people that are like, well, even five and up is good for me. Even they have lines at some point. This guy, and we've even seen people that have been into babies. This guy is into just like it's the lowest of the low is what he's into. Yeah. But I mean, the worst guy is probably Clayton Tanner. He's doing 3 to 8 years in Wyoming right now. We caught him in Cheyenne, and he was also going after who he thought was an 11-year-old and a baby. And I'm not going to say all he was into, but let's say he brought a knife because he's into gory shit.
Wow.
Holy shit.
Here, I've got a couple of stories that I wanted to share with you that have been kind of interesting, and we need to get you up here in Idaho, Alex. We need your help. It is so bad. The North End in Boise is awful. When you look at the pedophile map, they're everywhere. And, the North Idaho, not so bad, but we've got an issue with Spokane, right? And one of these, like, just to show you how bad this is, the former editor of the Spokesman Review, the largest newspaper in the region, was just caught. He was in a pedophile Instagram ring that was busted by Department of Homeland Security. And I guess he only got 10 years in prison. And like, this is a part of our problem, and maybe you have some insights into this. Why do these people seem to be getting off with these light sentences?
I mean, because these kids are ruined for life, right?
Yeah.
These kids are ruined for life. So it should be worse. That
They should be shot.
worse.
We have death by firing squad in Idaho. We just passed that last year.
Yeah, we did.
This year, we're passing legislation to make that our primary method of execution in the state. So why aren't we shooting these people? Why are they getting off with
why do they get
probation,
off so
5
easily?
years, 10 years? Can you explain?
Well, I think a lot of it is the prosecutors just like wins in their win column. I think so much. I think so much is like, when I think politicians just put themselves first. And, I don't even think it's necessarily that politicians like pedophiles. I just think they care about themselves more than they care about getting pedos off the streets. I mean, if they can just say, we have this many pedophiles convicted, rather than, oh, we have a few of them doing 100 years because, they give all of them fucking plea deals. I think it looks better on paper than it is in reality. Like, we caught a guy, John Cox, in Arkansas in May of 2022 in Faulkner County, in Conway, Arkansas. And he's one of the worst we've ever caught. He was an ordained minister, which I know doesn't really mean shit, but he met his wife online when she was 10 years old and he was 36. Met her. She's from Georgia. He's from Arkansas. As soon as she turned 18, he drove to Georgia, picked her up, married her. But obviously over the years, he was getting nudes from her, grooming her. I mean, she was totally fucked up. I mean, even when we caught him, his wife wasn't home because she was in the mental hospital because he was having like a mental breakdown. He was one of the most fucked up people we caught. And of course, we only caught him because he was inviting an 11-year-old girl over to his house and he had tons of child pornography, all that stuff. So, I mean, obviously the prosecution knows about all those facts of the case, and they gave him a 13-year plea deal, which isn't the worst. But I mean, I wish they would have just not offered him a plea and just took it to trial, because that guy needs to go away forever, and he's going to be out and offend again in a couple of years.
Alex, beyond what you're doing, what more needs to be done to address this problem?
Well, the easiest thing would be just you only get one chance. Like, I mean, like I said, so many of these pedos reoffend. Our first catch of the year, Daryl Meyer in West Virginia, he was abusing his stepdaughter from when she was 8 to 12 and officially got charged with it when she was 14. And I only know more facts about that because she reached out to me after we dropped the video. But we get him. He's talking to our 13-year-old decoy saying, I want to get you pregnant and all this stuff. And we go to his house. He admits to child pornography. I convinced him to go to the police station with me to, just get it taken care of. Because I'm like, no, bro, it's other people sending it to you. We just want to get it cleared up with the cops. And Dummy comes with me to the PD. He gets arrested for the child pornography. And, he only did 3 years for abusing an 8-year-old for 4 years. And of course he's reoffending. I mean, all these people reoffend. We've caught countless sex offenders. So the easiest thing to do to prevent it from happening more and more is just it's so cliche to say, but truly death penalty or throw them in jail for life.
Is there another organization or organizations that you work with that are law enforcement or otherwise that are assisting you do what you do? I mean, I've heard rumors that there are a lot of grassroots efforts behind catching pedophilia, shutting it down. Is that the case, or is it fairly sparse?
Well, we can't technically be agents of the state and work alongside law enforcement. I mean, the most we can do is kind of let them know we're in the area. But if we have a reputation with them, they kind of know, just have an officer ready. But I mean,
well, law enforcement can deputize, though, can they not?
Yeah, so the problem is with that, I live in Houston, Texas, and they're absolutely not deputize me for shit. But I asked this detective in Oklahoma, who I'm tight with. He was in Osage County, and I'm like, hey man, do you think you could just deputize me so we can make shit a little bit easier? And he's like, yeah, I would, but me being out of state's kind of an issue with that. But yeah, it's just tough with that.
Yeah, she made a joke. Rebecca made a joke here at the beginning about using the Grindr app to catch pedophiles. I mean, it is.
I wasn't joking.
I know you weren't joking. Yeah, I mean, you probably have like a 100% accuracy rate. I remember these two stories. There was one story about this gay couple, and there's these famous pictures of them at like Disneyland with their kids, right? They had these adopted kids, and they had like the t-shirts on, the Disney t-shirts on, and they posted all these like fun and exciting and happy pictures. Well, it turns out they were caught. They were doing things to their adopted kids. They were actually pimping their own adopted kids
within the network of other gays.
Within a network of other gays. Very easy to find other gays who are willing to do that. Additionally, there was another case. There was this other guy, I think he was in Texas, and the media really didn't outwardly say that he was gay, but you can tell from his profile picture that was on the thumbnail of these articles that he was definitely gay. And all you had to do is read a few paragraphs down, and you would find out that he was gay. Well, he was like babysitting at a mall or something for someone that he knew. And in Houston, right? Yeah, where you're at. And he reached out to his gay friends, found his gay friends easily, and they came over and they did things to these like toddlers at the mall. While their parents were working, while they were there. First of all, who in their right mind would let a gay guy watch your kids? Obviously, they're going to do something to them.
That's insane, of course. That's a massive parenting failure.
Yeah, massive parenting failure. But were those people on your radar at all before hearing about these stories, or?
No, he was not on our radar, but we did catch a babysitter in the Houston area in League City, Texas, in August of this past year, Harry Phillips, and the youngest ones are always the sickest. What we've noticed, like Clayton Tanner, that guy I was talking about in Wyoming, who brought the knife, he was only 19 when we caught him, but Harry was 21, and he worked at Domino's Pizza, and when he had a few minutes off, he came to this apartment to go meet a 12-year-old girl. And the kicker with him was he was a California transplant, used to babysit kids, molested all of them pretty much. And, in person, he admits to me that he molested a 1- and 2-year-old he was babysitting. And he was he was also, he swung both ways. And he was so fucking evil. So fucking evil.
Oh my God.
You take one in the butt, you're gay.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Doesn't matter if your eyes are open or closed.
It doesn't matter.
It is a commitment. Well, Alex, where can people find you?
Well, if y'all just go to YouTube and type in Predator Poachers, PREDATOR space POACHERS. I'm not saying it's my channel. I don't own any YouTube channels. I swear I don't own any YouTube channels. So y'all can just go. There's a guy on that channel that looks exactly like me and talks exactly like me that may or may not be me. So go follow that.
Got it.
Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Alex.
Appreciate y'all.
Are you married?
No, but the girl I'm with now, I'm definitely going to marry her, and she's watching right now. So
How old are you?
I'm 24.
24.
Wow.
20.
Young guy.
What's the best thing about dating 23-year-olds? You know?
That they're
Don't
5
say it.
years over 18, right?
Don't say it. Don't say it.
It's a trap. It's a trap. Well,
That
thanks
they're-
again. You can check him out
Don't say it,
at
Vince.
Predator Poachers on Twitter. Thanks for joining us, Alex. We really
All right.
appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you very much.
You heard that joke, huh?
Of course I did.
Oh, Lord.
All right.
On that note, Cameron this week was in
Keep things
Vancouver.
classy, San Diego.
Keep
We do,
things
yeah. Well,
classy.
this is a classy show. I hope everybody enjoyed that over their dinner hour. It's
right.
gross. So Cameron was in, I almost said Seattle. That's a Freudian slip.
Same difference.
Basically.
It is, basically. He was in Vancouver this week, and he sent us some videos, some just incredibly depressing videos of the drug usage that's going on there. And it led to a discussion about libertarianism. So that's what we're going to focus on today. Cameron, do you want to tell us a little bit about what you saw and how it differed from the last time you were in Vancouver?
So actually, this was the first time I've been to Vancouver.
Oh, okay.
But, let's see. In 2019, I was living in Thailand for a couple months, right before the COVID outbreak. And I flew back from Bangkok to San Francisco. And I had been living in Asia before Thailand. I was in China, some other places. And, allegedly, at least Thailand, or nominally Thailand, is an underdeveloped country. And in many ways it is. But I never felt unsafe, never had an issue when I was there. Well, end of 2019, I flew back through San Francisco. And I was actually in San Francisco for about a week. As soon as I land in the airport and I get on the BART, which is the metro station in San Francisco, they immediately have issues. And I'd heard various stories about San Francisco, but when I was there, I walked through the whole city, and it was a scene out of 8 Mile. I don't know if you guys remember that Eminem movie. It was horrifically bad. I mean, there were hundreds of addicts everywhere, huddled up, people bent over, emaciated, all kinds of pathological problems, et cetera, et cetera. Well, I hadn't seen anything like that for years because I haven't been back to San Francisco or Seattle in some time. That is exactly what I saw when I was in Vancouver. Vancouver has decided, as per the libertarian guidance, to decriminalize. And the notion that the libertarians have pushed for a long time is that we need to legalize drugs to deal with it. Well, as you can see on the screen if you're watching, this is exactly what it has done to Vancouver. And just to be clear with you, this is right near the downtown. It's on a street called Hastings Street. But the morning I left Vancouver, I left my Airbnb, walked down the street, and right around the block from where I was staying, there was a guy who was smoking something, passed out, and just laying flat on the ground. This is the state of Vancouver. And what I've heard is Seattle's just as bad. Obviously San Francisco, but this is spreading across not just Canada, but the United States. I think in Western Europe as well, to a lesser extent. So yeah, this is the state of affairs. It is a horrific sight, to be sure. And it's a shame because Vancouver's such a beautiful city, has so many things going for it. But this is what decriminalization, this is what libertarianism brings you.
Yes, and look at the demographic makeup of these people. Look, almost everybody's white.
Yep. Yep.
I think we have some.
Can they hear
statistics
that
on
while we're playing that or no?
No.
No.
Okay, I
We're
just
not-
want to
I'm
make
just
sure.
playing B-roll,
Okay.
just giving
Yeah.
people a taste of what's going on over there.
Yeah, it's dumb. I'll just say this whole decriminalization. I think it's really dumb because I'm 20 years sober. I'm coming up on 20 years sober in August, and I stopped drinking and everything before I was even legally old enough to. I stopped before I was even 21 because I liked it too much. I started waking up on random people's lawns, and I was like,
Is that different now?
we gotta, well, yeah, now it's just
He just
without
likes
it.
to sleep on people's lawns,
Now
unrelated
it's
to
just
drugs.
Sleep on Dave's couch over there quite a few times. So it's the only thing that stopped me was the threat of criminal prosecution, right? Of things happening to me legally. That was the only thing that made me really like hit rock bottom. And without the threat of being arrested or something happening to you legally, I think it's going to be really hard for people to come to that conclusion that they need to make a change in their life.
And the drug landscape is completely different now. I think we have a graphic. If you look, I mean, back in our day when there was drug use, nobody had ever heard of fentanyl. I didn't know anybody that had overdosed on fentanyl, and now I think that everybody knows somebody. Look at this massive spike in synthetic opioids other than methadone. It starts around 2015. That's when we started to hear about fentanyl. That's when Seattle went down the tubes. And this, of course, is disproportionately affecting young white men. Cameron, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, this is a big problem, and the decriminalization aspect of it is crucial to understand. But this ties into open borders. This ties into immigration. This ties into this notion that you can have, as Soros would put it, an open society where there are no benchmarks, there are no standards, and as Rebecca said, these drugs are weapons of mass destruction. What I was told when I was in Vancouver is that people think they're doing marijuana or they think they're doing heroin, but it's laced with something far more potent. And I think the key to understanding all of this is that this is big money, folks. So you wonder why the borders aren't closed. You wonder why there isn't a mass societal reaction to that, to what's happening in Vancouver or Seattle or what have you. It's because this is being monetized. It's being monetized through the financial system. It's tied to the open borders crowd. And this is going to take drastic, massive societal action to address. It speaks to the collapse morally, social, economically, and otherwise of our society.
That's true. And I think that the left is able to exploit libertarianism. I mean, the first principle of libertarianism is to do nothing that harms individual liberty. But you can't protect individual liberty in the way that we all think you can without harming the liberty of society at large. And that's really the problem that we're facing with libertarians. Pete Quinones has done several videos on this. He used to be a well-known libertarian, and he changed his mind around the COVID era because he realized that you can't force people into libertarianism because it's a violation of the first principle of being a libertarian. Yep. Therefore, it negates the entire philosophy.
Yeah. Well, the other thing, too, is, I think you guys are better informed on this subject than I am, but these drugs are so potent. You know, I was reading something online, I think on the DEA website, about the actual potency of these things in terms of its relative effect compared to heroin or cocaine. You're talking about 100 times more impact, more addictive quality. These drugs simply cannot be tolerated at all. And that's where we stand today. If you start to go down that path, and I have friends, relatives, everybody I think has personal experience with this, when you start to go down that path, you almost certainly do not come back.
Yeah, I want to say something about liberty. You were talking about libertarianism and do no harm and do no harm to, liberty or whatever. the thing is that you can't have, and I've talked about this before, I think on this show, you can't have freedom without order. And one of the analogies that I use often is, let's say that you live in the ghetto, right? Let's say you live in the ghetto. Let's say you live in a really dangerous area. You don't have the freedom to walk around at night without the fear of being mugged. That means you're not free.
Yep.
If you're not free, if you are scared to go outside of your house and walk down to the corner store and buy a gallon of milk, you're not free if you're scared to do that. You're not free if you're scared to allow your child to play out on the front lawn because they might be shot by a stray bullet. You're not free.
Yep.
And so you have to have order. You have to have a police force. You have to have authority there. You have to have people doing stop and frisk and all of these things to try to reduce crime. You have to have order first before freedom can come. And allowing people to do drugs and allowing people to watch porn and all of these things that people say are freedom, it's not. It's disorder. It will eventually lead to the opposite of what you intend to do. Libertarianism is so retarded. I mean, it's like you're supposed to stop being a libertarian by the time that you're like 16 years old, like 16, 17 years old.
Right.
You need order. Freedom comes from order. About the fentanyl stuff and the harder drugs, yeah, I never did any of those harder drugs. Never even saw like meth or fentanyl or any of this stuff growing up. But a lot of it is like my wife was offered fentanyl in the hospital. She was offered fentanyl in the hospital.
Well, that's what an epidural is, right? So like when a woman goes to a hospital to have a baby and they get an epidural, that's a shot of fentanyl directly into their spinal column.
Yes.
Which is crazy.
Yep.
And so,
Like people don't know that?
right. I mean, that's crazy.
I guess.
A lot of, and she just had like some cyst that was going to go away, and they offered fentanyl. I was like, no, what fentanyl? What are you talking about? Like, no, just give her some like Advil or something.
According to the DEA, fentanyl is 100 times more potent than morphine. I've had morphine; it's powerful. 50 times more potent than heroin. I have not had heroin, just to be clear. 50 times.
That's crazy.
It's lethal. It's just lethal. And as you said, Vince, look, freedom is not the right to self-destruction. And that's what a lot of people think. Without duty, without some kind of social obligation, freedom becomes slavery. And that's what you see. These people in Vancouver, Seattle, they are enslaved to this addiction. And it is destroying the moral fiber of that society. What's particularly disturbing is that it's happening at an alarming rate, but it starts slowly and it becomes normalized. And people then start to say, well, every city has its bad parts.
Right.
Everybody has
That's how
a
it
drug
happened in
problem.
Seattle. Like I moved there in 2014, and there was a homeless encampment.
Yep.
And then by 2015, they were starting to do the safe injection sites. By 2016, people were shooting up in our parks. They had their spoons and their needles and everything, just like a little drug kit. One time I called the cops, and they literally told me, what do you expect us to do about this? I'm like, they're openly using heroin in a public park that my tax dollars are paying for. And the cops were like, yeah, call us when you have a real problem.
Yep.
Arrest them. Like if there's a threat of them going to jail for the rest of their lives, do you think that these people want, like there has to be some threat of something to have, like if you just, it's like feeding, like they say don't feed the geese right at a park. Why do you think they say that? Because more geese will come and it'll get completely out of control. It's the same idea with drug addicts.
Right.
Just to back up what Cam was saying, we've got a little image here of here, I just have to scroll. Right?
What is carfentanyl?
Carfentanyl
Good Lord.
is even more powerful than fentanyl, right? So it's like we were talking about, what is it? What did you say it was?
50 times
Fentanyl is 50 times more potent than heroin. Carfentanyl is a step above fentanyl.
Yep.
Like it's basically elephant tranquilizer.
Yep.
And so literally just a flake of the stuff is enough to kill you.
Yes.
And that happens a lot. I was actually on a Twitter space with a cop from Baltimore, Maryland named Tom, and he had done a drug bust.
Yep.
And he goes into one of the rooms. They're conducting a routine search, and he pulls down like a shoebox, and I guess there was like loose fentanyl in the shoebox. When he opened it up, it poofed in his face.
Yep.
And he was basically nearly dead and high for 3 days.
Good Lord.
Wait, I heard about this story, I think.
You might have been on the same Twitter space. I don't know.
Maybe.
I don't know, but it's unbelievable too. And it's what's even more interesting is that the heroin in America, right? Like, where did that even come from, right? Like, I think it's worth talking about.
China.
First of all, it was there was the opium wars in China.
Yep.
But then there was Vietnam, and a lot. I think, and maybe I'm wrong, but I think a lot of the Vietnam War really was just about drug trafficking and controlling that Golden Triangle area, where most of the world's opium was produced up until the Afghanistan War, when all of these pictures of U.S. troops guarding poppy fields start to emerge, right? Yeah. And then it's interesting, right? Because, we can look at these charts over here, and we looked at this one before. It does in fact coincide with the wind down of the war in Iraq.
Yes.
So as we begin pulling, and the massive spike in 2020, 21, with people starting to do fentanyl, I mean, I think that's intimately related with the war in Afghanistan, and I think it provides like a different angle of viewing it, that the war in particular, that most people kind of like overlook.
Well, it's one tactic to destroy the white community. This is one way that they're doing it, and I believe that libertarianism plays a real part in this. I mean, I think that drug use it's a major problem, but it's a symptom of a larger problem. I mean, think about the way that we describe freedom within our society colloquially. It's not the freedom to, like Vince said, to feel safe in your community. It's the freedom to engage in vice, and that's a secularism problem. That's a lack of understanding of who we are and what our lives are worth. And when you don't have anything to live for, when you have no family, when you have no community, when you're overwhelmed with how depressing life is, that is when you're drawn to drug use.
Yeah. Well, there's a long history of this. You alluded to the opium wars a moment ago. There's a good book called Dope Incorporated, which I strongly recommend everybody who's watching or listening take a look at. Britain's opium war against the United States. This goes back to the 1970s. Just listen to this piece here. It says, in fact, the chain of interlocking free enterprise relationships that describes the flow of drugs and dirty money in and out of the United States only masks the type of conspiracies that Americans see, not in pulp thrillers, but in nightmares. We will uncover conspiracies, the spider's web of the British monarchy, the Italian surname, organized crime syndicates, London's Zionist cover terrorist operations, the secret of Peking's deep-running foreign intelligence organization. We will trace them all back to their common mother, the great aristocratic families of Britain. It's important to note that a lot of this drug trafficking is a global enterprise that goes back to the 19th century and is now fully integrated into the financial system. So you want to know why nothing is really done about this, and it's just rinse and repeat. Hey, let's decriminalize, let's set up rehabilitation centers, let's do everything except shut it down. It's because it's a business model that's integrated into the financial system. The good news for us is I think that financial system is sort of at its end. It's beginning to unwind, but it's going to take the destruction of that fiat system for us to really overcome this. I think that's imminent, but it does speak to something. Donald Trump cannot solve this on his own. It also speaks to the fact that if you're going to start this process, you got to close the borders, full stop. And remember that Vancouver, for instance, is a port of call for the Chinese. And that illustrates the connectivity that Dave was alluding to a moment ago.
That's close to us, too. Vancouver is not far from us.
How many hours by car?
Maybe 6, 7. You'd have to,
something.
I mean, the Canadian border is not far. It's 2.5 hours from where we are.
Yep.
It's 2.5 hours away. And another thing is the big pharma, the big pharma aspect of this. I remember when I was growing up, a lot of the moms were taking like oxycodone or OxyContin or something like this was a big thing. OxyContin, remember, there was a big thing in the 90s, early 2000s. There's a really great miniseries on Netflix. It's called Painkillers, and it's one of the best miniseries I've ever seen. Really explains the opioid crisis and the OxyContin era. And it talks about the Sackler family and, sort of, how they were, I think they just settled. There was a recent settlement or something, wasn't there, with the Sackler family? Yeah, here he's bringing it up right now. Yes, $7.4 billion settlement with Purdue Pharma, Sackler family. Yeah. Sackler family could help Colorado communities tackle the opioid crisis. So they settle for, billions of dollars here, billions of dollars there. None of them ended up in jail. Right? I don't know how many people actually died, got addicted, went on to harder drugs like heroin and maybe are on fentanyl now or died from fentanyl or whatever. But it's a big thing. And
suicides.
Suicides. They made billions of dollars from that over the course of 20 years. The interesting thing is, and I was looking this up when I was covering this on my show, is that within 1 year, the COVID vaccine, Big Pharma made more off the COVID vaccine in 1 year than the Sackler family did off of OxyContin in 20 years.
Yeah.
So, they offer you fentanyl at the hospital, OxyContin, oxycodone, whatever,
Is that on the
hydrocodone,
screen?
whatever.
No, I can put
And
that.
yeah, go ahead. What does it say? The Sackler family? Read
The
it.
Sackler family, owners of Purdue Pharma, are of Jewish descent.
No.
Wow. Arthur Mortimer Raymond Sackler, the key family members involved with Purdue Pharma, were the children of Jewish immigrants from Galicia, a region historically part of Eastern Europe.
Yeah, they don't put that in the Netflix series.
Right.
But it's a really good series. I urge you guys to watch it. It's really good, and it's a the like you said, it's intertwined in the financial system. It's in big pharma. It's all throughout, and no one's getting. There's no repercussions for it. No one's getting arrested. No one's the Sacklers didn't go to jail, right?
Right.
Alex Jones is being sued out of house and home for something that he said on the internet.
Right.
And the Sackler family, who got America addicted to heroin, basically, get off with like $7 billion settlement.
Like half of my friends from school are dead because of the Sackler family.
Yeah.
Like my best friend's brother died at 33.
Yeah.
And it was because of overprescription of pharmaceuticals. I don't know if our current audience is aware, but the very first interview that Blonde and I did was about overcoming addiction. I was a heroin addict. I got overprescribed OxyContin.
Alcoholic here.
Same.
Right?
Alcohol.
Wait, it was alcohol for you?
Well, I went to AA meetings.
Yes.
I probably should still. I went up until just a couple of years ago. I've been going for almost 20 years. And it was the only thing a lot of people are going to say, oh, AA is no. It helped, man. And it follows sort of like a Christian, like you have to repent for your sins.
Yep.
You have to go and you have to visit the people that you've harmed. And
it's like confession outside of the
It is.
church,
Yes.
basically.
And
But
here's
you're
the
also
thing.
with people that are like you. So one of the things about getting sober that's so isolating is feeling like I am the only person that has gone through something like this. But then you're in a room filled with people and they're laughing about the same kind of stuff that brings you to tears with shame, because you all kind of have the same story. And that's powerful. That sense of community is powerful.
I don't touch a drop. I haven't had a drop of alcohol, and I'm coming up on 20 years. Nothing, no weed, nothing. The only thing I'm addicted to is caffeine and nicotine right now. I just stopped vaping.
Alp Pouches
So we're
by
on.
Tucker Carlson.
I got the Rogue. I got the Zyn.
I love it. This chilled mint stuff is great. I would highly recommend it. Please give me 10% off my next order.
Yeah, really.
I quit vaping. It's been 3 days for me for vaping.
Oh, really?
And,
You did
yeah,
it?
3 days. I got to admit, though, every now and again, I take a little puff of a cigarette, put it out, take a little puff.
That's gay.
But, hey, listen, we're making progress here. I remember when I was like a troubled, rebellious teenager. And I remember just like being lost, just sort of like crying one time and like praying to God, like to like stop this from happening. And all of a sudden, my urge to do anything was gone. Yeah. And I made it, went to AA, and then, did the 12 steps multiple times and took other people through the 12 steps and
But did you do the 13th step?
No.
That's hooking up with.
That's when you start hooking up.
Never do the 13th step.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's uncommon. So you're sitting here with three people that have managed to avoid recidivism. Recidivism rates are, I think that it's 3%.
You mean relapsing?
The best way to put it is the success rate.
Yeah.
The success rate
It's low.
of Alcoholics
Very low,
Anonymous is 1%.
God.
1% of people who go into the rooms stay sober. That's it. And to me, that shows that, frankly, not to shit on Alcoholics Anonymous, but it shows me it doesn't work. And I think it's because they have divorced that program from Christ. They've divorced it from grace, and they turned it into this kind of human secular institution where, and it's actually one of the reasons why I converted, right? I remember, because you know how you close out and we pray the Lord's Prayer.
Yeah.
And there was this one time I was in Wilkes-Barre, and the guy on my left was Jewish, and the guy on my right was Muslim. And we're all praying the Our Father together.
Like, what is
And
happening
the
right now?
cognitive dissonance was just overwhelming, to the point where it's like, this guy says Jesus is boiling in hell in excrement, and this guy says that the Trinity is an excremental idea. God forgive me for even saying both of those things. So his God isn't mine, and his God isn't mine. So how can we pray Our Father together? And that kind of is what sent me down my path. But
I never had that. Not even in California did I ever have like an experience like that. It was mostly white dudes, conservative, mostly conservative. It's very interesting. Someone should do a study on this. Like, how many of us end up like right wing?
there is.
Yeah.
There is.
Like, how many of us have OCD? How many of us?
Like, were in the GATE program?
Yeah, we're in the GATE program, right? So,
Well, it's true. I mean, that's what led me to drink. I have horrible anxiety, always have. And then the first time I drank, I think I like puked on myself. And then I woke up and I was like, that was awesome. I want to do it all the time. Because it made me feel normal. I just, for the first time ever, I didn't have anxiety. People of high intelligence often end up
self-medicating.
Self-medicating.
Well, listen, it worked for me. I think it works. Like they say, it works if you work. It works if you put in the work, and it was Christian for me. It was very Christian. It reminded me.
It is a Christian program.
Yeah, there was this movie. It was called The Devil, and it was about this guy that got drunk and ran over a family. And he was basically visited by the devil. I don't know if you could pull up The Devil.
M. Night
movie.
Shyamalan.
M. Night Shyamalan.
Yeah.
Very good
Good
movie. Really good film.
Yep.
And essentially, the only thing that freed him was him openly admitting out loud to other people what his sins were. And that's one of the biggest steps in the program. And, you have to do it vigorously. You have to do it honestly. You have to do it, you have to do it. I mean, you had just like, I was like so desperate that I wanted to make sure that I overdid it to make sure that, I never go back. So it worked for me. I think, if you're willing, you can.
Well, you don't want to get to that point. I think that's
Yeah.
the key. And the connective tissue with the pedophilic epidemic, if that's what it is, God forbid, is that there aren't consequences.
Right.
And you heard Alex say that, right? He said that a lot of these pedos, they get off. Decriminalization is the same thing, or treating these people as though they're victims. Now, maybe they are, but they're victims from a public policy that's got to stop. What do we know historically about how to stop it? I gave you a clip of Lee Kuan Yew, who was the first prime minister of Singapore, basically the founder of Singapore, and he explains exactly what these drug traffickers are, how they should be treated, and why Singapore does not look like Vancouver.
Yeah, here, we'll pull this up.
Besides the human rights record, the number of executions, for instance, haven't they?
They may believe that if you're kind to drug traffickers, you get a better society. In America, they're changing their minds and they're sending people back to death row. In Singapore, before you land, their hostess or the steward will announce that there are very heavy penalties if you're found with more than a stated number of grams of certain prohibited drugs. And if you still come in with a few kilos of them, which will destroy hundreds, thousands of families, one death is too kind. Because you're killing that family every day for years and years and years, that a daughter or a son is an addict.
But the per capita rate of executions in Singapore is much higher than in the United States,
Have you worked it out?
according to Amnesty International.
Have they worked it out
Apparently.
accurately? Per capita of what? Per capita of drug?
So anyway, now they're going on about per capita.
Yeah, so look,
Old per capita.
we've run the test case, right? It's no longer theoretical, and I think it's important to note that Lee Kuan Yew and a lot of the policies, which include strict border controls, immigration controls, was heavily criticized in the West, and is even to this day as somehow unenlightened or not progressive, not democratic, et cetera, et cetera. But if you listen to what he says, he knows whereof he speaks. Now, how does he know that? Well, as Dave alluded to earlier, drug abuse in Southeast Asia has always been a problem, but especially so in China during the Opium Wars in the 19th century, when the epidemic of opium, which was introduced by the British Empire, was destroying millions of people's lives, destroying millions. And the Chinese emperor of the Qing dynasty had to bring in a special viceroy to basically squash the drug problem. And what did he do? He confiscated all the drugs, and anybody that did not comply with his martial order was put to the death. That's what it took. And when he confiscated everything, he destroyed it because he was worried that if he shipped it back to the emperor, it would be seized by somebody else and then redistributed. The reaction to that was that the British Empire declared war on China, and you got imperial domination of the Chinese. But the point is that that's where they got. We have arrived. We're there. We have a national crisis that is going to demand that volume, that scale of federal enforcement. If we don't have it, we're going to collapse as a society. And that's what you see in Vancouver, Seattle, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, the more you normalize stuff, the more you're going to get of it. That's right.
Of course,
And
it's logical.
it's like with the pedophile stuff. Like I think a lot of it has to do with pornography. I think a lot like how ubiquitous pornography is. A lot of it has to do with the normalization of homosexuality. And the more that people have access to these things, the more that people get addicted to these things, the more that they go on to do shit that bad shit. Right? It's like what is a property crime? Right, in California, we used to have these. They called them property crimes, and a lot of times it was like people breaking into random cars outside of a driveway because you left your car open. Right, and what are those people? What is their goal? Their goal is to try to find money so that they can buy their next fix. Right, and it's because of the normalization. It's because of the decriminalization that you have the increase in the ubiquity of this issue, whether it's pedophilia and sex crimes and so forth, or with drugs. And so the only option is to reassert order. You have to have order reinstated once again in order to stop this from happening. It has to be a big crackdown.
Particularly for the younger kids. And all of you have children, and so you appreciate the gravity of this. There's also another video of Kensington, which I believe is a part of Philadelphia, and this shows you how bad it is in the United States.
By the way, don't forget to send your super chats to thebacklash.net/super chat. We are up on powerchat.live, Entropy Stream, and on Streamlabs. So if you would like to send in some questions for any of us, or whatever,
or attack us, or
if you want to
glaze
attack us,
you can glaze us.
No
you can glaze
simps.
Rebecca.
No
simps.
simping.
No simping. No simping.
Simping is definitely allowed.
And then we also have an unboxing for the end of the stream as well.
We
during
do.
the super chat segment.
So here we go. We're going to pull this.
I lived here till I was about 7 years old.
So it's changed quite a bit since when you were growing up here.
Yes, it has. Back in the day, you could leave your doors open. You could walk the streets and feel safe. Obviously, today, you can't do that. You can't do that.
And that's why you brought your friend out here just in case, right? Security, you were thinking?
When you have cameras in an area like this, you just want to have protection. We're good. Let's go.
These guys all here, fentanyl, is that the story?
Yeah, fentanyl, yeah.
Jeez.
Fentanyl, trank. In Kensington, there's always, back in the 70s, there was meth, and then it came in the 80s, cocaine, and then the heroin came in. I remember as a young kid, there was a guy shooting, it was like 1973 it was.
Yep.
There was a guy standing on the corner, and he wrapped his arm, took his belt off, wrapped his arm up, right? So we have a lot of young kids watching it. We're like, what's this guy doing? Well, the five of the guys who was watching him, they became heroin addicts. My brother was one of them, 12 years old. That's the average age, they say, where an addiction starts, 12 with heroin.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
12?
And he ultimately died. My
That's
brother
unbelievable.
Is that right? Is that real? Oh, you can go ahead and take it off.
I assume.
That can't possibly be true.
That's crazy if that's true. 12 years old.
When I went to rehab, there were a lot of people that started using drugs around that age.
Yes.
It's not as uncommon as you might think it is.
Yeah, that's right.
It's pretty bad, and sex trafficking too.
Yes.
Because you're 14, 15, 16 years old. You don't really have any income streams. Mom won't give you any more money, but they start turning tricks. And start doing really depraved shit for these drugs. What's really interesting, the brain networking, specifically with heroin, that winds up happening is like, you're a mother. Imagine if you were out at like Disneyland and you lost your children. They're no longer, like, you look down into your purse, you look back up, and they're gone. And you scan the line.
I've been there.
Right?
I've been there. It's like a sinking feeling. Like
you're
like, whoa, where'd you go?
Right. They've done studies on this, and that is the exact same neural pathway when you are going through withdrawal from heroin. Mm-hmm. The impulse of like, oh my God, my children are missing. I need to go find them. It's the same drive towards getting more drugs that winds up happening in the brain.
What a nightmare.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I know that I also, we're talking about porn addiction. They say that it alters your brain, the structure of your brain, the same way that heroin alters the structure of your brain. I'm not sure about the neural pathways or which pathways or whatever, but if you look at, if you pull this up and you look at porn addiction, just click on images, you can probably see, just click on images there. Yeah, there you go. Right there, that second one from the left, top row. Yeah, you can see that it alters your brain in the same way that heroin addiction does.
Yeah. Wow.
So, when we're talking about how the increase in the normalization of this leads to the increase in the ubiquity of this, and then it leads to all sorts of other issues. It's like people have to understand that there's a problem. This is not normal. This is not good, right? This stuff, like, they've turned good into bad and bad into good. This stuff is not good. And I think that there's a reckoning. I think that a lot of people are realizing a lot of this stuff now. And even with weed, like, weed is like really bad. It's like really bad for you. And just don't.
I've even been and like Cam said at the beginning, I heard. I guess this is more of a rumor. But I had heard that somebody had bought medical marijuana from a shop, either in Seattle or Portland, and they smoked, it was a pre-rolled joint, and there was fentanyl in it, and they died.
Yeah.
And that was from a legal dispensary, not just like picking up a dime bag from Daryl, whatever. Dime bag Daryl.
Oh, Daryl.
Pantera.
Yeah.
Well, people don't seem to realize how interrelated all of these things are. It's about sensation seeking. So they've done a lot of studies on this, and sensation seeking, it always escalates. And so what we see on a societal level is the gay acceptance, especially, has been a huge problem. Did you know that half of gay men have been molested?
I'm sure it's probably higher than that.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's how they reproduce, is by molesting kids.
Devin Stack.
But a lot of that is because they were molested, right?
Right.
Yeah. Devin Stack, there was a whole video. I can't remember what it was called, but it's on Devin's channel. It was like an old, I remember the video was called Logos Propaganda. And it was like this, it was produced by a police department, like trying to warn people of the dangers of like homosexuality.
Oh yeah, from the 50s.
From the 50s.
Yeah,
and they were
that.
very honest about it, you know, that's how they self-replicate, is by abusing their victims. And then they go on, I mean, look at Milo.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Yeah, I'm sure it's higher than 50%. It's got to be higher than 50%. I think it was something like, I remember, and I forget most of this stuff. I used to have all of this in my brain because I used to cover this stuff back in like 2017, 2018. There was a study that was done on the percentage of male sex abusers that are gay. And it was something like 3-to-1 or 4-to-1 to heterosexuals or something like that. There's some study in the 90s. There it is. Good job. You're getting better. You're getting better at this, Dave. You're doing really well.
I don't know if this is the right
that's
one.
That's 1997. Yeah.
You're an expert childhood sexual abuse.
Whoa, hey, I don't know about that.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I don't know what that. I don't know if that's the same abstract. Maybe not the same study I was looking at, but
35.5% reported being sexually abused as children, according to this. So, I mean, it could be higher. You know, and it depends on how they selected their study group.
Right. Well, I was talking about the percentage of male sex abusers that identify as gay, and. Yeah, there was a bunch of studies. They pretty much stopped doing a lot of these studies because they want to sort of like cover this stuff up, and this is how they alter. When they say trust the science, it's like trust the science because you control the science.
Right.
It's with the just like with the Painkillers documentary or miniseries on Netflix. They were talking about how they were poaching people from the FDA to become their employees.
Mm-hmm.
The Sackler family, where they were poaching people from the FDA to become their employees. They were forcing a lot of people. They were basically paying people off to write stuff, paying people to write publications, to write scientific studies on how OxyContin is good and it doesn't do this and it doesn't do that. It's like, yeah, trust the science, but actually, you are the one you're the one who's writing the science.
Right.
So
I think I actually found the study. It says previous investigations indicated that the ratio of sex offenders against female children versus offenders against male children is 2 to 1, while the ratio of gynephiles to androphiles among the general population is 20 to 1.
Yeah, there was another thing that said, heterosexual, homosexual pedophiles was calculated to be approximately 11 to 1. There it is at the end. It says the ratio of heterosexual to homosexual pedophiles was calculated to be approximately 11 to 1. This suggests the resulting proportion of true pedophiles among persons with a homosexual erotic development is greater than the persons who develop heterosexuality. So there's all sorts of studies, but they pretty much stopped doing these studies in the late 90s because they didn't like what the studies were actually finding.
Right.
So
well, you recall for years, and all of you have heard this argument that what other people do doesn't affect you. Their sexual preferences, their drug abuse or use. Their communal values, right? And obviously it's gotten to the point where it doesn't even matter whether people are citizens or not, things of that nature. But once that door starts to slide, you end up swinging directly into anarchy. And I would just say that we're in a moment in time right now that is at an emergency level. I mean, if you look at some of those images in Kensington, that's not unique. That is pervasive across the Midwest. You see it on the West Coast, East Coast, down south. You'll see people in the Panhandle in Florida, and their lives are completely destroyed. And obviously that eats away at the economy as well. Never mind the fact that the elites on Wall Street are telling us that we're in the greatest economy we've ever had.
Right.
Obviously, if you look beneath the surface, you see the true malaise that's happening. We're in a crisis, 100%.
And then what adds to that is that this identity crisis.
Yeah, of course.
Right? Is that, people, we have an identity crisis. There's no connection anymore. There's no community anymore. I remember growing up, I think it sort of like ended with like the 90s maybe was like the last generation, or maybe the early 2000s, maybe extended to the early 2000s. But I remember growing up, and I remember like doing like egging houses or whatever. and other moms in the neighborhood would contact my mom and be like, hey, do you know what your son was doing? They recognized me, right? There was a community, there was connection there.
Yeah.
Nowadays, there's a lack of that. There's no community, there's no connection.
We're bowling alone.
We're bowling alone, right? I mean, he referenced the book by Robert Putnam. And he talks about this. It's like, because of the demographic change that this country has experienced, because of the differences of people, you don't even understand your neighbors anymore in a lot of cities. I went to Orlando a couple of years ago for Christmas, and there was like 28 different languages spoken. No one spoke English when you walked into like the supermarket or the corner store. There's no connection there. Mm-hmm. There's no shared culture, shared experiences, shared history, community. There's no trust. And Robert Putnam talked about this. He said the more diverse the community becomes, the less people trust each other.
Right.
And if you don't trust each other, how can you build a community? How can you form a community? How can you have that connection where the mom says, "Hey, keeps some other kids and check.
Right.
Hey, your kid was doing this, or I'm a little bit worried about your kid. I heard him talking about this. You don't even talk to your neighbors anymore. People don't even talk to their neighbors anymore. In a lot of cases, it's because they can't understand their neighbor. So they're, even the most fundamental part of assimilation is gone, and that's language.
In 2024 in British Columbia, so again, back to Vancouver, over 500 deaths related to drugs, almost certainly higher than that, 15% of which just died on the street. On the street.
Oh, my God.
So what does that tell you about society? And when I was walking through the streets, I stopped and looked at this because it is an overwhelming experience. And bear in mind, I've been all over the world, but you want to tell somebody, you sort of want to scream fire, but who's going to come?
Right. Yeah.
Because the whole population is apathetic and they're just sort of mind-numbingly meandering, and specifically talking about the white population.
Yeah.
Because there is no community. There is a Chinese community in Vancouver, a very large one, and maybe there's some other sub-communities, but to whom would I address this? To whom would I say, hey, we have a major problem here? And obviously, if you went back 50 years, people would have screamed to the high hills that somebody needed help, called, the authorities, community, official or otherwise. Today, who do you call? It's a society that's vacant, that's morally bankrupt.
And
This
also
is where
they're
we are.
resentful. When I was living in Seattle, I've told this story on my podcast before, but I lived in Capitol Hill in Seattle, and my husband was deployed, and I was walking my dog late at night, and I see somebody in the middle of the street, totally lifeless, just passed out. And my first instinct was like, I should go check on this guy. And then I had so many negative interactions with homeless people that I was like, I'm a single woman. I can't just go up to this guy. He could stab me and do any number of things. So I just went to my apartment. I think I told the guy at the front desk, like, there's somebody that's probably dead out there. And he's like, oh, okay. Then I go up and I watch from my apartment, and I see an ambulance loading him in so slow. He was clearly dead. Yeah. But my instinct,
Of course.
What was I? And I feel a lot of guilt for that, because I just saw somebody. Maybe I could have saved their life or something like that. But they just pose such an incredible safety hazard to people living in the city that mostly it was just an inconvenience to me. And that's the level of humanity that people living in American cities have. Like, it didn't seem like my fellow man was dying in the street. I was like, this guy is going to stab me or something.
Right.
It was just about my safety
Right.
and how I can get through the day. And that's how everybody living in cities is. You just walk through cities and you see the most depraved stuff. Yep. People just suffering
Do you remember
horribly.
the video that just came out a couple weeks ago of like a woman that they had set on fucking fire
Yeah.
in the subway?
And
it's
nobody
like,
was doing
there's-
anything.
It's like, you know what? There's someone burning alive. Quick, let me grab my phone and film
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Not like, there's probably a fire extinguisher. They don't even think about that. They
Yeah.
don't care. It's
Right.
just like content.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's sick.
Do you remember Austin? Remember when we were in Austin a couple years ago?
Yeah?
Remember when we were staying at that Airbnb and it
Oh
was
my
right next to
God, that's
Target?
right,
Remember
yeah.
that? So we were staying at this Airbnb and it was like right next to Target. I don't know exactly where it was. I can't remember. But
It was
like
right
this big
downtown
building.
Austin.
It was like this little mini mall, right? And you had a Target in it, and then you had our Airbnb in it.
Mm-hmm.
And then we would to go to Target to go buy like a case of water or whatever. It was literally like right around the corner, the Target. It was in the same building, but you had to leave outside,
The front
walk down the
door.
street, the front door, and walk down like a quarter of a block and then walk into Target. It was like a thing that we didn't want to do because there were so many homeless people on the street, and they would like follow you into Target. Remember, they had an armed security guard
Yeah.
keeping these people from following. Like you had to like watch your back all the time.
Yeah.
These people are like zombies, just
Yes.
like walking around. It's crazy.
Remember, we were out there like taking pictures, remember? And then like one after another of these local people start coming up saying like, like, what are you doing? Like, are you with the media? Like,
Yeah.
are you going to finally cover the drug crisis here? And it's like, no, not
Nope,
right.
not really.
I can call Alex Jones, like maybe we can get Harrison Smith to come up under the bridge or something, but like, just unbelievable. And the media totally, Spokane is this way. You haven't really had the honor of going through Spokane.
I've heard the
It
rumors.
is-
Spokane.
I would rather hang out, and I've said it, if I said it once, I'll say it 100 times. I'd rather hang out in O Block than I would in Spokane.
Yeah.
Straight up.
Yeah.
I feel safer in Chicago than I do up here.
It's pretty shifty in Spokane
pretty
in
goofy.
certain parts.
Yeah.
It's really crazy. But do we want to go to Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, look, this started 50 years ago. I gave you a clip of William F. Buckley
Okay.
One of the progenitors, if you will, of the modern conservative movement, at least to some. But this was his take. And the drug problem at this time was just getting started. It was largely concentrated in the black community. And obviously, we've seen the results. But listen to what he says here.
Now, I've seen varying estimates of what that cost figure is. I've never seen one that's less than $500 billion. And we're spending $125 to $30 billion in our war on drugs. I would infinitely prefer to reduce that net loss to the cost of looking after people who have the habit and who need care, which would take us down to $20–30 billion a year, and have the relative liberty that would flow from a situation in which half of America isn't constipated by worrying about drug takers and by drug sellers and by people who rob and steal in order to profiteer from the situation.
Now, may I ask you a question?
Sure.
What's the downside, as Buckley sees it?
Well, the downside is that almost inevitably you will find X number of people, I don't know how many they are, and there are disputes about this, X number of people who say, now that I can actually walk into a federal drugstore and buy it, I'll go ahead and do so. Now, this is widely reflected on. How many people in that category are there? The ACLU, at least Ira Glasser, who's the head of it, he doesn't think there would necessarily be any increase in drug taking.
Wow.
Of course he did.
Truly stunning. But just to take a sample size, there's 4 people sitting on this panel, and 3 of the 4 have been down that road. That's how dangerous the situation is, and it speaks to the irresponsibility of people like Buckley and others who should have known better, and the bankruptcy of the Republican Party, and it gets back to our theme, the backlash and the need for a movement. I would also add something else. The prohibition movement was not just about alcohol. It was about organized crime. Organized crime, bootlegging, was a national crisis that eventually led to prohibition, also led to the border being closed. And a drastic reaction that started at the state and local level and then eventually ended at the federal level in what we call today Americanization, or what they called then. We don't have that either. There is no Americanization. The public school system was the vehicle to assimilate people, to teach them English, American values, Christian values, etc. All of that has been demolished. It's gone. It's a blank slate. We've arrived at the zombie apocalypse.
Yeah.
I know that this is a really small sample size, but I know a lot of people that have said they smoked weed or whatever when they were kids or whatever, and they never did because it was like illegal in their state. But once their state legalized it, they said, okay, well now that it's legal and I can go to the dispensary and buy it, I'm going to do it. And then they end up getting addicted to it or whatever. So obviously, him listening to the ACLU,
right?
It's like listening to the ADL for
Expert
your statistics,
opinion.
right?
Ira Glasser.
Not to derail too much, and we should probably do a whole episode on prohibition because it's so interesting.
Oh, we were at Capone's bar.
We went
Chicago.
to Capone's bar in Chicago and sat in his little booth, and we got to see the trap door where the tunnels were and stuff. But it's interesting because actually North Idaho was quite the hub for drug trafficking. Al Capone's older brother was our prohibition agent.
Really?
For he was with like the Bureau of Indian Affairs. And a prohibition agent. And so he would go and bust all of the illegal operations here so that the product from Chicago would make its way to Seattle.
He became a supplier.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And, it's really interesting because a lot of those early prohibition people happened to be Jewish. Meyer Lansky, Mo Dalitz, Bugsy Siegel, the old Murder Incorporated group.
Mickey Cohen.
And, if you look at what's going on today, things haven't really changed. This is an article from the Los Angeles Times from 1989 showing how during the Iran-Contra affair, the Israelis were actually training the drug cartels. And more recently, how Mexico became the biggest user of the world's most notorious spy tool, Pegasus, which is also
an Israeli creation.
An Israeli creation from NSO Group, which were all made up of ex-Unit 8200
That was the one that was in the
members.
iPhones, right? They were putting into iPhones.
We just lifted the sanctions on that, by the way.
Yeah.
That was a part of Donald Trump repealing the sanctions against the illegal settlers in the West Bank and wherever else they're settling, I guess, right now. But it's interesting. It's and then, of course, the Sackler family.
Yeah.
I remember that was one of my big red pills when I was figuring things out, where it's like, wait a minute, what? All of it? All of it.
Every single time. Eastern Standard Time,
Yep.
as they say. I do one. I know I threw a clip in the Backlash Telegram chat. Sorry to do this to you, Dave, but what we need is, like we said before, like we were talking about before, we need to return. We need to reestablish order, and we need to, and this applies to everything. We need to regulate based on a Christian understanding of morality, and we need to get back to reestablishing order and almost like a reset to the country, to the system, and then we can sort of go from there. This is a Democrat, former mayor of Chicago, Mayor Daley, talking about the riots that were going. This is a Democrat. He would be considered super far right-wing fascist today for saying this. This is him talking about the riots in Chicago. Let's take a look at this clip.
I said to him very emphatically and very definitely that an order be issued immediately under his signature to shoot to kill any arsonist or anyone with a Molotov cocktail in their hand in Chicago, to fire a building because they're potential murderers, and to issue a police order to shoot, to maim, or cripple anyone looting any stores in our city. And above all, the crime of arson is to me the most hideous and worst crime of any, and should be dealt with in this fashion. I was disappointed to know that every policeman.
So there you go. I mean that's what they did, right? And that was back when America was cleaner. It was more ordered. It was better, right? It was a better time. And why was it a better time? Because the people were different, and they regulated based on a Christian understanding of morality. Now, he was a very corrupt guy. I'll say that. I mean, Mayor Daley was very corrupt, but he knew how to handle shit. He knew how to get stuff done. And that's what we need. We need
how many millions of lives, tens of millions of lives, would have been saved if we had that policy in place during the Antifa riots, during the LA riots, at the border, with the fentanyl crisis.
Right.
How many lives today would have been restored and saved if those draconian measures were in place to protect the population, which is the first order of government?
Right.
Well, I think that it's possible that we need to go back even further with this restructuring, because we are based on Enlightenment principles that value personal liberty above all else. Is personal liberty really supposed to be the essence of life? I don't think so.
Well, the thing is, though, is that if you're talking about the founders, and I've talked about this on my show, they did understand that when it comes to society, you do have to regulate society through law based on a Christian understanding of morality. They understood that. A lot of people want to say separation of church and state. This is a total lie, total misconception, total fake news. There's a monument. It's called America's Monument to the Forefathers. It's in Plymouth, or is it in Plymouth? I'm not sure if that's where it is. It's by Plymouth Rock. And it's called America's Monument to the Forefathers. And in the middle of this monument, there's a big statue, and that statue's name is Faith. And surrounding that big statue, there's 4 other statues, and one statue is called Morality. There's another statue that's called Law. And this was built in the 1800s. This is the tallest granite monument in the world, I think, at least in America. And basically what this is a blueprint for society, saying that you have to write your laws based on morality, but that morality must come from faith. Faith is holding a Bible. Morality is holding the 10 Commandments. It must come from faith, and it must come from God. And so they understood this, right? This is what we need to return to. Nowadays, porn is free speech, right? You can't, don't step on my freedom, man. That's not what America's about. Well, actually, yeah, for most of American history, that's what America was about. And that's what we need to return to. In terms of the drug crisis, in terms of the rioting and the Black Lives Matter and all of that, I think Cam said this last week. He said Trump could very easily fix a lot of what's going on at the border by instituting the Insurrection Act, right? And listen, I want to give credit where credit's due. He's done a pretty good job, a surprisingly good job in the first 2 weeks. I think we're up like 1,000 arrests a day. It needs to be much higher than that.
Right.
But I think there was 500 illegal crossings at the border for the first time in ever that's ever happened. He's doing a really good job with that. A lot of other things. I think the J6ers, all of them were released, 1,500. He just said, F it, release all of them. Screw this, trying to see who did what or who did. So he's done a good job, but we need to go further. If you want to repair some of the country within the 4 years that you have in office, you need to go further, you need to go harder, and it needs to be like what we just saw with Mayor Daley.
Need to go Duterte mode, right?
Right.
Wasn't Duterte like executing drug smugglers down there?
Yeah, I mean at least the drug dealers. We need to the drug dealers, the drug smugglers. We need to go after these people hard.
You can't treat evil lightly, and you can't treat evil as the communists do, as some kind of pathology that needs to be rehabilitated. We've tried that; it doesn't work. But back to your question about liberty, democracy, freedom. A lot of these things depend upon preconditions, and the framers of the Constitution knew quite well that the precondition for the United States was that we had a Christian moral ethic that was embedded in the population already. The reason why you could have a state that was limited in its power is because you had a moral population that could govern itself. If that moral component dissolves or is eradicated, you no longer have either an orderly society or a state. And remember, the state ultimately reflects the population, not the other way around. This is what Americans get wrong all the time regarding immigration and immigrants. They think the only issue in Iran or the only issue in Latin America are the governments. It's the governments. No, the governments there reflect the culture of the people who live there. For example, I've heard routinely people have said, well, the reason immigrants are coming here is because they share the same values that we have. If they shared the same values that we have, they wouldn't need to come here because their societies would reflect
function.
That. But they do not, okay? The second piece is pushing the libertarian model to its extreme, and that is a kind of unconstrained freedom. Hegel did not say exactly this, I'm paraphrasing, but basically freedom without duty is slavery. And that's what you see when you go to Seattle, Vancouver. These people are maximizing their freedom. They have neglected the obligatory choices that we make as adults. We don't always do what we want to do. They're fully indulging in their freedom. And what is the result of that? Right. Is that they are enslaved to a drug that's destroying them and society. This is where we are.
What did St. Augustine say? He said you have as many masters as you have vices.
Precisely.
Right? And, there's also, I remember this old Fulton Sheen clip where, he's talking about the distinction between freedom and license, this idea of do what thou wilt versus do what you ought.
Yes,
precisely. Freedom is the ability to do what you ought to do. You ought to be able to go to work in peace. You ought to be able to walk home in peace, go to church, go shopping, interact with your community. Like these are things that you ought to be able to do. And when you allow people to do whatever they want to do, that infringes on everybody else necessarily.
Yes, and implicit in that, and this is key, is intolerance. Morality must be intolerant. You don't tolerate, Dave, you have children, certain things. Right. If you tolerated everything, you would get pure anarchy.
Right.
And that is precisely where we are. The moral majority, as I think Jerry Falwell put it, is the backbone of the country. It's not the Constitution or some body of laws or the magic soil that we live on that transforms immigrants who come here into Americans just like that. It's the moral majority. If the majority isn't moral, then there is no society. And that's how you get people dying in the street and everybody sort of steps away from them, goes and gets their latte and goes about their day. This is where we are.
And if there is no majority, there is no society.
That's right. Yeah.
Unbelievable.
What majority culture, what culture would you assimilate to if there is no majority?
Well, we've seen it. You tribalize along the biggest. And, you know, it's interesting. This is sort of a separate issue, but I do think it relates because you start to see all kinds of bizarre pathologies emerge when it's not clear what the moral framework is. Drug abuse is one of them, but I saw a lot when I was in Vancouver. I've seen this all over the United States. Lots of interracial couples. And why is that? Well, my contention is part of the reason is because there's a regime change. There's a new moral majority, and that's foreigners. And so the females are gravitating towards the new regime, and they're turning away from the legacy culture, the legacy moral majority.
Yeah.
And they're doing so, I think, in an advised fashion. You know, in other words, it's not just some arbitrary choice. The moral framework, in other words, is shifting, and they're reorienting them, their tastes. Because remember, women ultimately reflect the power structure, and they select based on what the power structure tells them.
Yeah, I mean, you can look at what our culture or whatever holds up, right? It's the basketball players, the baseball, the football, the rappers, you know. This is what is propped up by the media as like the ideal. So that makes sense. It makes sense.
Or fetishizing minorities.
Right.
Fetishizing foreign culture as some kind of pristine, unperverted, higher culture than what we have. Because what we have is a legacy of slavery, oppression, racism.
Well, they say we have no culture,
and we have no culture, or we
but
don't
then they
even
say,
exist.
But then those same people admit that Western culture is the best culture, but they don't want to admit where Western culture came from.
Well, Western culture is the best insofar as we permit absolute freedom, which undermines and destroys that Western culture.
Right, which is just absolute anarchy and degeneracy.
And this is why we're in a death spiral.
I also want to point out that back in the day, we had the Hays Code, right?
We did.
The Hays Code was what basically reigned in Hollywood. And one of the pieces in the Hays Code under Section 3, Number 6, miscegenation, sexual relationship between white and black races is forbidden in films.
Yeah.
And that was the Catholic Church's position.
Yeah.
That's back when the Catholic Church, and the Protestant Church to some degree as well, kept Hollywood in check.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you couldn't even see like basic. A lot of this comes from back to the normalization of a lot of these things, normalizing it as good, normalizing it as normal, and then it just completely gets out of control. That's why we have to go really, really, really hard.
We have to go
backward.
back.
We have to go back.
We have
hard.
to return to tradition.
Return to tradition.
And a lot of people are going to think that, you know, a lot of people are going to lose a lot of freedoms for a time, but it has to happen.
Right.
I do want to say, though, because, you know, we often talk off camera and I guess on about blackpilling. You know, when I was in Vancouver, I had a lot of conversations with just regular folks, and the awareness is growing. And there is a sort of built-up resistance now to the tolerance junkie, to letting everything slide or the moral relativism. People are increasingly upset. I also think that need for community has created a hole that people are sort of beginning to look outward to fill. Certainly religion is a part of that, but it's also just your population, you know, people that share your common culture identity. I definitely saw that in Canada, and I saw something else too, a recognition that drastic change is needed. Drastic.
Yep, with a lot of things.
With everything.
Unfortunately, it had to get really out of control for people to start to realize this.
Yeah.
The question is, has it gotten out of control enough for people to be willing to do something
about it? Right.
Well,
also, do we have the ability or the grit?
Yes to both.
You think so?
Yeah.
I think a lot of these there are a lot of politicians that want to do the things that we want to do. Like I just saw something recently. I reposted this on Telegram. I forget which state it was in, but it was they're trying to pass a ban basically on homosexuality, homosexual marriage.
Oh yeah, Dusty Deaver. Or no, that was the porn.
Was it porn? I think it was. There was something else about gay marriage or whatever. So I think there are a lot of politicians, whether it be in state legislature or Washington, D.C., in the House or in the Senate or whatever, I don't think I put a title in there. I think I just reposted like the picture or whatever. But I think that there are a lot of people that want to do the things that we want done, but they don't really have the moral courage to be able to pursue that. And I think that part of the reason is because they don't think that they have the will of the people.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think that eventually it's going to become apparent that the will of the people is on their side.
Mm-hmm.
I think we talked about this last week where immigration, I think most people in America, there were a couple of polls that we went over, most people in America agree with deporting all illegal immigrants here.
And it will
Over
embolden
50%.
populists like Trump.
Right. And so it will give people that passport, in government to start to introduce bills to get the things that we want done. Unfortunately, it just had to get really bad for this to happen. But I think we're over 10%. I think we're over that 10% rule. Right? They say that if 10% of the population adopts a certain belief, that eventually it becomes the belief of 100% of the population. Inevitably, I think that we're past that 10% for sure.
Yeah, it's that. It's also that these social problems are cumulative, and the drug problem. Yeah, we can read statistics all day long, but the reality is that everybody's been personally affected by this. It's a tragedy that we can all taste and feel viscerally. When do you do something about the dead body? Well, when the stench becomes overwhelming, and at this stage, it's becoming noxious. It's becoming overwhelming, and I think people are on the cusp of an explosion in the opposite direction. I really do. And these things are non-linear, meaning you can't sort of say, okay, well, it started at a 5 and now it's at a 10. It goes from a 0 or a 1 to a 10. And that's, I think, the moment we're in.
Yep, 100%.
Yeah.
All right, well, send in your super chats to the backlash.net/super chat. You can super chat on powerchat.live/the backlash. You can super chat on Streamlabs. We've got Entropy. We're going to do a little bit of an unboxing to let you guys bring in the super chat. Now, remember, we're 100% viewer funded here. We don't have any sponsors yet. Hopefully, we'll get some. So send in your super chats, support the show. Big shout out to one of you guys, the same person that sent the. What was it called, Dave? What is it that they sent?
We got the DeckLink Pro, the Blackmagic Design DeckLink Pro 8K. So this is going to allow us to bring in 4 unique cameras, plus Vince's laptop. So Vince will be able to go off like the king
Bring stuff
is.
up. Yep. Big shout out to B for that.
Got a couple of these micro converters.
That was you, though, right?
That was me.
Yeah. And then
I'll throw in some of my own money too. But
bring up the box. This is from B. Yeah, we have a wish list too. If you go to the backlash.net on the wish list, you'll see the things that we need.
Under support the show.
Under support the show.
Yeah.
This is Christmas for Dave.
I know.
Mr.
I was
Dave
wondering why
Riley.
you had a knife.
It's because there's some Muslims.
Very few things excite Dave beyond production equipment. Camera equipment.
Very few things. That's very true.
Yeah.
Except for me. I excite Dave.
More boxes.
More boxes. But this
There
is
we
it.
go. Look
this
at that.
is the housing that we need to put. I'll just
Can we? Oh, yeah, there we go. Look at that.
put that there. We'll put this here.
Boom. Big
Thank
shout
you.
out. Big salute to Mr. B for getting those things on our wish list. We appreciate it, man. These are expensive pieces of equipment here.
Yeah.
So.
We're going to be so professional. It's going to be tremendous. It's going to be wonderful.
Let us know in the live chat. How was we changed a little bit of the stream settings too. Let us know in the live chat how it's, but hopefully there was no buffering during the show. I don't know if we can bring up all the, by the way, we have all of the live chats up on screen. So we can see no matter where you're watching, if you're on X, there is a live chat on X. Not many people know this. There's a live chat if you're watching on X. We can see your X chat. We can see your YouTube chat, all in one
Your
chat
Rumble
now.
chats.
Cozy TV. We can see everything. So no matter where you're watching, if you're chatting in the live chat, we can see it all up in one live chat.
Did we put that no simp filter on there?
No simp filter in the super chat. We'll see if it works. Go ahead.
We'll
Dave.
see if it works. Here's the first one for the evening from Bill Biz, who sent $25.
Yo.
A new UK BBC hit piece targeting Mark Collett and the patriotic alternative was just released. It implies a danger in expressing controversial views in private conversation. Can the United Kingdom become any more draconian?
Can you look up that Mark Collette? Just
He
look up Mark
did
Collette.
release the audio ahead of this. He very smartly recorded, so you can hear what he actually said. He's so well spoken, Mr. Mark Collette.
Is this it right here?
Yeah. That is the one.
Far-right group exposed in undercover BBC investigation.
Mm-hmm.
It's 2 minutes. Should I play it?
All right, let's watch it.
Oh, no.
Audio?
I'm not on your property.
Stay out of my way.
Why do you think, sir? So why do you think the migrants should be rounded up and put in camps? And
Why do you
shot
think,
if they
sir?
don't?
Get out of the way.
I'm
Get
not
away from
on
my
your
house.
property.
You're not getting any comment off me because anything I say, you'll lie about, okay? So just stay on my prey. I'm leaving for work. Get out of the way.
Why do you think the migrants should be rounded up, put in camps and shot if they refuse to leave? Mr. Watkins, will you speak to us, sir? There we go, Mr. Watkins.
It's so funny
doesn't
how
want to
they
speak to us
talk.
about comments he's made about migrants, putting them in camps and being shot if they don't go away.
So,
Mr. Watkins? Mr. Watkins?
And that's the end of it. It's the only way they'll leave. It's the only way we can keep this country ours.
This is how I have to earn my living since I was bloody donkey. What happened then? I just emailed my boss. I was like, look, boss, this come out about me. You know, a lot of my comments were incitement to racial hatred and ethnic violence. I'm not admitting to that because it's all, you know, hate speech laws. Yeah.
All right, we don't have to play
All I said was whatever.
Anyway.
But that's crazy, though, that they...
That they were able to do this.
Well, yeah, I mean, because you can go to jail for that there, right? Like,
So in private conversation, things that you say, they're not like intended to be broadcast to the world.
I don't
And
know.
you'll be like
Outrageous.
held liable for your private
was that
speech.
was it a private?
Well, it sounds like they were painting a house or something, and the guy recorded it and turned it over.
What
It's a
the
Hope Not Hate.
heck?
yeah, so
Unbelievable.
I just let me talk about this for just a second because I was talking earlier with Rebecca, and I know a lot of Americans don't seem to care what's going on in Europe. The situation in England, as far as I can gather, is nothing less than explosive. Things have gotten completely out of control there. They've had rape gangs for a long time that have been covered up. Now it's starting to come out just how extensive it is, just how embedded it is in the Muslim community. And a lot of what's motivating the censorship, just to be clear, is because it's a social tinderbox. And what I have heard is that the British government has back channels to the Muslim community, and they're trying to reassure the Muslim community that they're going to squash any growing resistance or anti-Muslim sentiment in England because they don't really have control of the country anymore. Okay, this is how bad things are. Now, added to that, the Financial Times put out a piece, I think today, in fact, about a shortage of gold from the Bank of England. Now, what does that have to do with the immigration problem? Well, the Bank of England and the UK government are on the verge of bankruptcy. They're in a default spiral. Interest rates on their debt are skyrocketing. They have pension funds that are bankrupt. They are in recession. They have been in recession for some time. And they're loaded up with foreigners that are being given public housing, social benefits of every kind. If they go into a default spiral, which I think is imminent, and that's why this gold shortage is an issue. It's a way for them to backstop their liabilities. If they go into this default spiral, you're going to see a racial crisis in the UK, the likes of which we haven't seen since the US in the 1960s.
Wow.
Or presumably what Enoch Powell, for those of you who do not know who Enoch Powell is, you should look him up. He gave a very famous speech called the Rivers of Blood speech, in which he predicted a racial war in the United Kingdom. This is also what's motivated Elon Musk's commentary about the UK, Germany. In other words, again, we're getting closer to the edge of total lawlessness. We could be there in months, depending on the fiscal situation over there. That's motivating the crackdown on censorship.
Yes.
One other thing to note on this is that the public support or popularity of the recently elected prime minister, a guy named Keir Starmer, has collapsed.
Yep.
His government is on the verge of collapsing too. And this is following a string of governments that have collapsed. The government in Canada, Trudeau, has basically stepped down, okay? The German coalition, led by Olaf Scholz, has been voted out. They've collapsed. The French government is melting down. So this is a very dangerous social situation, and that's why the censorship is kicking up. It is not, in other words, a reflection of our side in this, if you will, or nationalism, if you will, dying. It's the opposite.
Yeah. They're never going to be able to tamp it down, though. I mean, it's just too out of control for them.
Yeah. Michael Gerard sent $5. Last episode, you thought I was a black Hebrew Israelite. I am not. Those guys are crazy. I'm simply a man who has done a deep study into whites and has come upon the truth that they are the true Israelites and display the promises of God.
This is the guy that said that the blacks were the real Jews last episode, right?
Is it? Now it's the other way around.
Oh, whites are the real Jews?
That's what he's saying. He's saying that
Yo, we the Jews. Now go.
It's interesting. There's a lot of back and forth, I guess. Like we were talking about this a little bit before the show. That whole Christian identity movement of like the 1970s and 80s. That was their primary. That was like the keystone of their whole ideology. Was that the Anglo-Saxons are like the lost tribe of Dan, and they're like really Israel or whatever. I don't know. I mean, I have different beliefs than that, but.
That's always a fluid discussion.
I mean, and that whole thing came out of this thing. It was called British Israelism, which was kind of propagated by the Rothschilds at the time to get the British monarchy on board with colonizing Palestine.
No, that's right, Dave. But remember, there's rifts inside of the Israeli community too, between the Sephardics, who were true Semites, and the Ashkenazis, who were not Semites,
right?
Regarding the lineage of the chosen people,
right?
So even in the Jewish community, there's open debate about that, and it evolves over time.
Yeah, and you can look at the was it Torah Jews, right? Those are they're very staunchly anti-Zionist.
Yep.
So yeah, no, it's
well, there's friction in Israel between the Ashkenazis and the Hasidic Jews, for example, because the Hasidic Jews refuse to serve in the IDF.
Right.
So there you go. In a country of only 10 million people, if you can't get everybody to serve, and you're facing 1 billion Muslims, it's a big problem.
Big problem. Nick Olas sent $25. Glad to see Cameron saw Trump's memo about show in-person work.
I did see that.
He's finally
that's right. He saw Trump. Yeah, that's why he's here. Yeah, we need
federal employees need to work, right?
Yeah, that's right. Type one in the chat if you think Cameron should move here. Type 1 in the chat if you think Cameron should move here. Type 2 if you're gay and you think he should remain on Skype for the rest of the shows. Look how much better the show is with him in person. Look how much
the flow
is so much better. He's here. Yeah,
you're glazing.
Yeah, I'm glazing.
You're glazing.
A little bit of glazing. A little bit of glazing.
It's even more off camera, guys.
It is even more off camera. That's
He was
right.
asking about the pedo tactics earlier for a reason, I think.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It was like, Cameron, let's go hang out downtown. Let's go walk around. Go ahead. What's the next one?
Robert sent $25. Holy moly, Vince's better looking older brother with hair in the studio.
Ew.
Let's freaking go. We are so back. Glad you guys dumped that other host. What a total nerd, am I right? With love from Telegram 07.
Damn. I thought he was gonna talk good about me at first, and then it just went all downhill.
Yeah.
I did too.
Yeah, I was like, oh,
Vince can pull off the
Mr. Clean
bald look.
thing.
He can.
Yep.
You should see the photos of him when he was in like a band. He was in like a rock band when he was like 18 years
handsome
old.
guy.
He had like this like long hair, played guitar in a band. It doesn't even look like him.
It all went away at 19.
You guys don't know this. I told Vince this, but when I had my head shaved when I was in the military, people called me Schmiegel. They would walk by my room and say, "Precious."
My precious.
Yes. So I'm glad I have my hair.
That's funny. You know, if somebody sends $100 super chat,
nope, don't say it.
We will post the picture of Vince with the long hair.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
On the Twitter account.
I think I've already posted that.
I thought you were going a different direction.
No, it's the first time.
Cameron
It'll
will
be the
shave
first
his
time
head.
ever. If you send 150, no, I'm kidding. All right, let's see.
Shirt off.
Logan Orr sent $10. I blew the engine on my Chevelle yesterday. At least I can say I'm not a blank who's blown a blank. I've got the content filter on.
Oh,
I guess. I don't know.
I've seen that car. Sorry to hear
let's
that,
see
buddy.
it. You can bring it up, right?
I would have to do things that I don't know how to do on this thing. We'll figure it out.
Okay.
Words.
We'll find them. Words. Geez, this is not good. You guys got to stop swearing. Ninja Guinea sent $10. The pedo issue is always a winner when trying to radicalize others. Talk to anyone who isn't a faggot, and they will agree that these people shouldn't be breathing. I'm assuming that that's
Vince
what he
sent
said.
that chat in. Did you send that super chat?
No, I didn't. Ninja Guinea, that's so funny.
Ninja
He sent a super chat in, I think, a couple of weeks ago or last week.
Yeah.
That's a play on words with the D Live. So you remember D Live?
Yeah.
Ninja Guinea was 1,000 of whatever their money was on D Live. If you got a Ninja Guinea, it was like, whoa, Ninja Guinea. I forget what I think it was like $25 was the equivalent. But Ninja Guinea.
Ninja Guinea. All right, Zach Log the Great sent $5. We all know about white girls with black eyes, but if a white chick dates a Jew, is that Talmud Shark? Love the show, guys. For more racist jokes, find Zach Log on Gab, YouTube, or WordPress.
That's right. Thank you, Zach
That
Log.
is
We
true.
love your dad jokes.
We
love
do.
your racist dad jokes. I almost told the joke while Alex Rosen was on. He's like, don't say it. Don't say it.
Yeah, because I know the joke. I know that joke. And
Completely off color, completely wrong time to tell the
you know
joke.
what's great about 23-year-olds?
All right. Moving on.
I don't
There's
think
20
they,
of
I don't
them. There's 20.
Nick FL 1776 sent $10. The federal government should reclassify fentanyl as a chemical weapon and
Yes.
prosecute dealers as
Yes.
terrorists.
That's exactly right.
Yeah,
Based-
totally.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's right. It is. It is.
Are you guys listening in the Idaho legislature? This is a little bit better than mandatory minimums, okay?
Yeah.
Anonymous sent $5. Blonde's looking extremely good tonight.
Thanks. I appreciate that. Really.
Yes.
I really appreciate that, guys. The foundation alone just takes hours.
It was me.
Hopefully next week it's going to be about a more fun topic. The new press secretary rules, by the way. Love her style. Yeah, what's her name?
Look it up. Let's see.
Trump's new press.
They all look the same.
I can't spell.
They just cake on the makeup, though.
Yeah.
Don't they, Rebecca? I mean, my God.
Listen, there's so many lights.
Caroline Leavitt. And I believe she's Catholic.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, we've been taking this over.
I've seen a few videos of hers. She's pretty hardcore. The one to her right is, I've seen her too.
What happened to Hope Hicks? I liked her. I met her. She was like, I remember they gave me press passes back in 2016.
Didn't she bang Corey
Lewandowski? Yeah.
Cameron, smash or pass?
Are people...
Cameron, answer the question.
Smash or pass?
Smash
what
or
do you
pass?
think I would say?
You would say smash. Yeah.
He would say pass.
Are
'cause
people still saying bang, though?
I don't know. I
Bang.
say it.
Okay.
I think that's like a... Yeah,
It's
I
because
don't
you're
know.
old.
I am old. That's fact check true.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
What
Big
were-
Matt.
Wait, what were you going to say?
Smash.
No, but before that. What were you going to say before that, though? Before I interrupted you, you were saying something.
I don't know. Let's move on.
Okay.
Probably
Moving
something
on.
inconsequential.
Big Mad Lad sent $5. It's not just the culture and values of a country's people that are reflected in governments. It's the genetics of a people that is reflected in their government. Uganda is a Christian country with
Yes.
Christian values. Does anyone want to live in Uganda?
Yes,
No.
that's right. That's right. And no, I've talked about this before. Look, Christianity is fundamental to the history of the country. So is its white demographic. You cannot decouple one from the other, right? We've heard this tried or discussed or advocated for a long time. Well, we've seen the results.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yep.
no. it just-
And in
and
some
you can look
places-
at things like the Hays Code,
Yep.
for proof. You can look at what we were discussing a couple episodes ago.
Look at Liberia.
Oh yeah.
But you do need an ethos. You can't just. I mean, look, a lot of the European countries, their demographics are better than, not a lot. Some are better than we are, but their ethos, their identity, is still diminished. So that's why religion, that's why common values and so forth, that's why national identity are so crucial. You need both.
Yeah.
You need both. You need that self-confidence and you need that homogeneity.
Yes.
You need both.
Amen. Yep. Addicted to Drums sent $25.
Hey, buddy.
Check
Thank
out
you.
Paul Harvey's "If I Were the Devil" speech. Worth a listen.
Oh, yeah.
That's
I
a good
remember
one.
that.
That's a good
That's
one.
old
Don't know
school
that one.
stuff. That's
You
good
don't
stuff.
know the If I Were the
Neither do I. I'm
man.
gonna write
that
this.
out.
I gotta listen to that.
Yeah, I don't know if we'll play
And
it
watch
right now.
the Devil movie.
The
Yeah.
devil's
and
good.
painkillers.
If I were the devil, I'd convince the world that I didn't exist and blah, blah, it's
That was from, what year was that from?
like 1963. I
Yeah.
think it was like during Beatlemania. You know what I mean? They were like freaking out about the British invasion and the new music, and then here we are in 2025 and everyone's like, this is fine.
Well, a lot of that stuff was real. Like the Satanic Panic stuff was real.
Yeah.
The Pizzagate stuff, like the Satanic Panic stuff when it comes to the child trafficking, like that was real.
Yeah,
Like,
well, there
we
was
should
the
do a whole
Finders.
episode on the Finders.
The
one of these
Finders, the
days, yeah.
Keepers, the Franklin scandal,
Yep.
Boys Town, and then, of course, Epstein, Nexium, and all
The Finders was really crazy. We have to like do like a deep dive on that one time because that was the CIA was involved in.
Yeah.
There's pictures of them bringing out trash bags full of pictures of kids that they forced to do satanic sexual rituals. Polaroid pictures.
Jeez.
A lot of CIA agents were involved, and there was McMartin Preschool. They had a literal tunnel where they were taking kids from these schools and bringing them through the tunnels. So a lot of what the premise of Pizzagate is real. It's just that they turn this in. They do this with everything, right? They bring in a shooter or they bring in someone, and then they're like, "Oh, you believe in that?"
And it
Look what
becomes
this
a
guy
media
did."
spectacle,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Oh, you believe in that? Oh, you're a white supremacist. Or you believe in that? Then you're this guy.
Yeah.
So we'll have to talk about
Yeah,
that.
I think there was a documentary that came out about Pizzagate that Liz Crokin was in, because I believe she was the initial journalist that kind of started to break that stuff about the hot dogs, the pizzas. Like, let's get a hot dog for an hour or whatever. And it's funny how the media works on people, because the whole thing started with the Podesta emails, which were real emails. They actually existed. And the things that they wrote in those emails
Were
are actually there and bizarre.
Pizza-related map.
Right,
Remember that?
exactly.
Yeah.
And so it's like that was Pizzagate, right? Comet Ping Pong, that kind of came after.
Yep.
That was a little bit of a sideshow. I mean, obviously the guy who was at Comet, right, wasn't he married to like David Brock
Yes.
of Media Matters? And like they were posting some weird stuff and probably doing some weird stuff. But anyway.
Oh, dude, he was ranked as one of Washington D.C.'s
Most influential.
top 50 most influential people, and he's the owner of a pizza shop. That's weird.
Yeah.
And then Tony Podesta, the artwork.
The
that he
artwork
has
was
in his house-
bizarre.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that Mouthy Buddha documentary.
Yeah, that
Holy
Mouthy
shit. That
Buddha,
kept me up for a couple of days.
It's disturbing, but
Yeah.
it is something that's very important to watch. And I think his YouTube channel was deplatformed.
Yes, it was.
It was.
Yes, it was. And I thought that they were bringing some sort of legal action against him, right? Because he was attempting to track these people, and then I think they were trying to nail him on it.
Well, he found, if you remember, Dave, he found a lot of inroads into that world networks through Google search. There was a whole like encrypted messaging service,
right?
That was tied to a language, and it went deep.
Wow.
It went deep.
Unbelievable. Muffington, censored Muffington, sent $5. Cameron, when do you think the neoliberal order collapses? My guess is around 2032.
Collapse is one of those words that's very elastic. I think we're in the process. I think it's happening as we speak. I mean, look at our show. What brought us together is evidence that order is losing power, that it's losing the confidence of the population. The drug addiction problem that we talked about today, I mean, that's hitting critical mass. Vancouver as a city is decimated by this. Seattle is I was in an Uber earlier today from a guy from Seattle, and he said, "I'll never go back there. I love Coeur d'Alene. This is my home now." I think we're in the midst of that collapse. Your question is probably, when does the financial system finally give? Well, that's the $1 million question.
Right.
But I think anytime now. As I mentioned earlier, this gold shortage in the London Metals Exchange, this is a big deal. You're probably going to hear more about that in the news, but we're close. That's my answer.
Right.
We're close.
And there's also this issue of the debt, the government debt.
Yep.
The service payments on our debt has now exceeded the military budget.
Yes.
So wonky things are about to happen.
Yeah, and just one other thing on this too is that a lot of people think that, well, it takes decades to build up, so it'll take decades to collapse.
No, it happens quickly.
That's not the way it works.
Happens quickly, right? Oh, well, hold on. Someone was talking about going to Africa earlier, or Uganda.
Yeah.
I especially can't go there because I would be oppressed. In parts of Africa, they actually crack the heads open of bald people because they believe that gold is in their skull.
That's
so
true.
I would be hunted.
That's like actually true.
It's like literally true. I forget which part of Africa.
Muff Muffington sent a follow-up question.
There's
Cameron,
only one way to find out.
There's only one way to find out.
Cameron, do you think the collapse of the neoliberal order will cause a pan-European movement or state to form?
I don't know about state, but movement, it's there.
Yep.
Right. We're a part of it. You know, I think that's what Trump was tapping into in 2016. Dave and I were talking the other day about the Tea Party movement, about Occupy Wall Street. Again, if you look in detail, if you look closer, what's happening? These are just waves that are getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
Right.
So yeah, it's arrived. In terms of a state, I don't think so.
Well, I mean, isn't like the European Union kind of like this failed, goofy attempt at a pan-European currency, and it's all very fake and gay?
Yeah, well, before the Second War, that was sort of the vision of the Nazis,
Right.
among others. You know, the goal was always to get back to Charlemagne,
Right.
A united Christendom, if you will. But as you say, Dave, the European Union is just a Zionist project, basically. And it is a tool, a platform that has subverted, undermined, and destroyed Europe in the same way that the two-party system, the Fed, the banking system in the U.S. has done to us.
Yeah.
No different.
Muff Muffington with another $5. You know, you could just like put it all in. No, I'm kidding. Israel seems to have really messed up by helping to overthrow Syria. Now they have Turkey, the most powerful Muslim country in the world, on their border. The hubris. Can you speak to this?
Yeah, I think everybody here can. But you recall, Vince and I think we're going back and forth on this. When Syria fell, there was an effort in the media, I think probably in a targeted sense, to declare victory and say, oh, the Israelis, they're so smart, they're so clever. And I said at the time, this is not a good idea. If you're going to, the lesson the CIA has taught us is that if you destabilize a regime, make sure there's oceans that separates you. You don't destabilize a regime that is your neighbor. Well, now they've destabilized one. They have an Islamist, authoritarian, imperialist structure right next to them. Bad idea. Bad idea.
Not good. Anonymous sent $10. Cam should move to Boston, run for mayor, and resegregate the city.
Good luck with that one. Boston's pretty segregated, though.
Yeah, it
I
is.
think.
Yeah, well, there's like Roxbury Crossing,
Yeah.
Roxbury Hill, whatever, and that's like, you know, Jamaica Plain.
Yeah.
Then you've got like all of like the white kids out in like, you know, the Gap in Alston.
Yeah.
And then, you know, the Harvard area is all white, you know.
What's the name of that pollster? Is it Adam Silver?
Nate Silver.
Nate Silver. Thank you.
Yeah.
He put out research maybe 10 years ago saying unequivocally that the most diverse cities in the United States, and he had a list, Chicago, D.C., whatever, didn't matter. They're the most segregated.
Yeah,
Always.
I was just going to say
that happens.
The more condensed your population is, the more segregation occurs, right? The more, I mean, you see, the more you're around it, right? The more you want to get away from it.
Well, Cameron's been saying that forever. It's a proximity to multiculturalism.
Right, a proximity to anything. I mean, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, right? I was on the ferry waiting to cross to go to my uncle's house on the island out just off the coast of Anacortes, and you know, these people, everyone on the island except for my uncle are like liberals, and they all have the Black Lives Matter signs outside of their house. Well, I was waiting on the ferry, and one of these residents of this island comes up to me and she hands me a flyer and she's like, hey, come to our city hall meeting tonight. We're trying to fight the Section 8 housing from being built, prevent the Section 8 housing. Yeah, why? I thought you guys love diversity, right? So it's the living in proximity to it, having exposure to it, eventually changes your mind. And also it becomes more apparent. The segregation becomes more apparent. Like we were in Chicago, and Chicago's very segregated as well. I don't know much about Boston, but I'm sure it's similar. Like we drive a block, you have the Mexican neighborhood, you have Little Village, which coincidentally there was a big news story about Little Village recently and how it's become like a ghost town because of all the ICE raids that are happening there. Latin Kings there, Mexican, Hispanic town. And then you drive another block and you've got the black neighborhoods. And then you drive another block and a couple of blocks, and then you've got the white suburbs. And so the segregation becomes more visibly apparent in places where the population is more condensed.
True. So you're gonna run for mayor in Boston? No.
I'll give it some thought.
He needs to move here.
Yeah, he does. Big Mad Lad sent $5. Cameron, would you ever consider running for office? You're a great leader with the right opinions. Okay. You see, there's a zeitgeist out there.
I think that
He's even got the.
I think that
thing in his
everybody
pocket,
here at some point should. I think Dave, you've given consideration to that. Have you not?
I ran for school
you
board
ran,
in
yeah.
2021. I ran for governor in 2022. I might run for governor again.
Yeah.
I haven't written that off.
Yeah.
Not that I would win.
Yeah.
But the idea would be to just, to put the platform out there that people want, and articulate what people are feeling.
Yeah.
Put pen to paper, because someone's got to do it.
Yeah.
There's got to be a
That's
tip of
right.
the spear. Someone has to break the barrier and just say what needs to be done.
Yes.
And then it becomes talked about, and as it's
Yes.
talked about, it becomes normalized. And yeah, I mean,
have you,
that's how
Rebecca?
politics
Have you
works.
thought about that?
I don't know. I don't really have an interest in it. And then I would have to censor myself to some degree.
You would never. You wouldn't win dog catcher if you
No.
ran.
I don't know
Absolutely
where
not.
we're headed. Who knows?
We don't need women running for.
That is
Yeah,
also
you know.
true. I don't even vote.
We don't
But
need women running anything except for the kitchen.
I didn't even make those cookies.
Give me another.
One thing I
cookie.
will say though on this topic before we move on is, and Dave knows this better than I do because he's been way more politically active. I think Vince too, actually. Yeah, politics is a game of showing up. So those of you out there, that are even passively thinking about getting involved in something like that, do it.
Yeah.
You don't have to be particularly eloquent. I mean, look at Trump, for God's sakes. The man is just, he's inarticulate. Let's leave it there.
Very big,
If
very
you show
big.
up, if you're forceful, if you believe in what you're saying and doing, you can win. You can be successful.
Yeah, and there's networks now of campaign consultants, political consulting firms that will help you come up with your talking points.
Precisely.
Specifically for right-wing candidates. They're out there. So if you are thinking, you should probably get in touch with the show. We have a contact page on the website, thebacklash.net, and that's one way we can maybe help you if you are inclined. We've got one on entropy, and I don't know how to get this thing to trigger, so I don't want it to disappear if I hit the check
Well,
button.
that's just a screenshot.
Does
right?
that work? No, it's
Oh,
not.
okay.
It's real, but it's not working. Anyway, it says, the question is Trump a forerunner to the Antichrist? He surrounds himself with the children of Moloch. Is undying support for the counterfeit Israel, his undying support for the counterfeit Israel is disturbing. America first? Was that a question? Is he the forerunner to the Antichrist? Cameron.
Let's go to Vince first. What do you think?
I've heard this theory. I've heard that he is the Antichrist. I've heard that Kushner was the Antichrist. I don't know. I'm not sure about this. I mean, we every decade or so we hear the world's about to come to an end, and these biblical prophecies that are being fulfilled and so forth, and Red Seas and whatever. So I don't know.
Yeah, when we started this show, one of the things that Rebecca said to me is, there's just a lot of black-pilled people that are on our side or in this sort of sphere, if you will. The real right, I guess is what I would call it, for various reasons. And my response to her was, well, I don't think that's the way the situation looks, certainly not to me. But the other thing is, just in general, you don't want to subscribe to a philosophy that is disempowering to you. I strongly, strongly encourage you to stay keen on the notion that your life makes a difference, that you can make an impact, that you can get married, that you should have children, that the future can be better, and ultimately that you and other good people like you can change, right? You can change the environment that you're in. Too many people that I think are very well informed often, they go down the rabbit hole and it's paralysis by analysis. They conclude, well, everything's out of my hands. It's all predetermined. There's a global conspiracy, and so we're finished, and I can't do anything. Don't subscribe to any philosophy or ideology, political or otherwise, that disempowers you.
Right.
That'd be my response.
Right. And then at a minimum, we have a moral obligation to do something. And we've talked about this before. I mean, we will have to answer for our indecision, our inability to enact change, for the things that we could have fought against and didn't because we felt like we were powerless. I mean, we're going to have to answer to this. And we're going to have to answer to our children. And I want to be able to tell Emmeline and Annalise, like, listen, like I tried to do something about this so that your life was better.
Exactly.
Yep.
And we need everyone everywhere, right?
Yep.
We need the elites. We need the people that go to college. I've talked about this before. We need the people that go to college that become part of the elite class. We need the people that are on Twitter. I mean, look at the impact that you can have on Twitter right now. I mean,
Right.
I've got something like 20, 30, 40 million impressions in like 30 days or something like that. Like you can really, and listen, a lot of us took a lot of slings and arrows. I know me especially, like I took a lot of slings and arrows over the past 10 years. Blonde, Dave, and we took a lot of slings and arrows to be able to normalize the conversations or somewhat normalize the conversations that we're having today. And so it's a lot, we sort of paved the path for the rest of you to be able to tweet things.
Right.
I'm
and
not
it was
saying
totally,
do it openly.
it was worth it.
Right. It was
I mean,
totally
I
worth
wouldn't
worth
do it again knowing what I know now, but.
Right.
it
Yeah. I
was
mean, my
worth
life
it.
is like completely destroyed.
You literally
so
have-
this is the last option.
You literally have two phones because
my uncle
Vinny.
my uncle calls me Vinny Two Phones because I've got two phones because one phone is like hardware banned on everything. So my uncle calls me, hey, Vinny Two Phones. Anyway, so we were like the civil rights activists in that way. We sort of have paved the path and somewhat normalize the conversations that we have so that it makes it easier for you.
So
I'm not
now
saying go
you
tweet.
can get a sock account and talk about the
Yeah,
twos on
not
Twitter.
like I'm not saying do it
Do it.
openly, but I'm just saying you never know what sort of impact you can have. And then outside of that, it's not just the grandiose. Oh, I got a big account with a lot of traction. It could be just showing up to your local Republican county committee and talking to people and meeting people and getting appointed a precinct chairman and then taking over the committee and having a say in your elections that way, gaining power that way. So
creating a PAC,
right?
Creating
a PAC.
mutual aid networks for people like us, for the people that are in the vanguard,
And if you don't want your name out there at all, another way is to donate 5 Bitcoin to our show.
Which you can do at thebacklash.net.
Yeah, thebacklash.net. We can be your voice anyway.
Yeah.
Amen. No, we can.
or having a functional nuclear family. Like, that is very important.
Reproducing yourself and raising and rearing your children in truth and righteousness.
Over 2.
Yeah,
Amen.
don't forget what Andrew Jackson said. It's a principle I remember wherever I go. One man with courage makes a majority.
Yep.
So I always talk about empowered minorities. We talk about certain groups that embody that. So don't think for a second that because the majority are normies or because you live with liberals or whatever, that it's hopeless. It's just not the case.
Amen.
And we do need that simple-minded majority to fall into place when we're able to create a vanguard and move the needle. We'll need them to be like, oh, this is what we believe now. So they will serve their purpose in future.
Yeah. Let's see if these work. Maybe they do.
Got entropies?
We got a couple more entropies. Oh, and I just missed that one. These are the first. Ruby 219 said these are the first results when entering 94 into Twitter X search. 94 pizzas, 94 footballs. This is sick.
Oh, what he was talking about the pedo
Yeah,
hashtag.
the #94.
Oh, yeah. Don't search that stuff out. Like, you will never unsee that shit ever.
Yeah.
It's pretty bad.
I started diving into it once I was like going through these accounts on TikTok. I started seeing like and I was just talking to them like it was always gay men, a lot of gay men, and then they had like the pride flags, and then you go to who they follow, and then it's like CP links is with the at on the account, and then there was another account. I'm looking for Dropbox links. I guess Dropbox is another big one outside of. He was right. Telegram is because he said like. Telegram is a telltale sign that they're probably like doing child pornography.
We were
he was
like,
talking
what?
about pedophiles, right? Because we all have Telegram accounts. But I guess Telegram is a big one. I haven't seen it on Telegram, but Dropbox is another one.
You want to know where else this stuff is? It's in your school libraries.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
It's in your county libraries. I remember, like if the Mouthy Buddha stuff was bad, but there was this book called Identical is the name of the book. And the book is about a father who abuses his 6-year-old daughter. in graphic detail.
Yeah. I do remember
Graphic.
people talking
And this
about
was
that
in
book. Yeah.
public library?
Yeah,
This was in our public libraries up here in North Idaho. And I went and I literally checked the book out and went to the board meeting and slammed it on the table and started reading out of it. And it's absolutely disgusting. I couldn't sleep for like 3 days after that.
Fortunately, I don't think kids go to libraries anymore. And also libraries are probably going to become a thing of the past. But if you want to solve that problem, because I think libraries, they don't have any fines anymore for late fees. So just go rent literally all of the books. And
just take them home and don't
just
give them
take them
back.
home and never return them.
Yep.
But I mean, it's online. It's crazy how they've normalized this stuff.
We had another donation from Soaker City. I don't know if that'll trigger it on screen. No. Okay. Anyway, Soaker City asked us to play a short song on the show. It's from a group of pedo busters in Canada called Creep Catchers. It's hilarious and catchy, safe for radio. We're not going to play that. We're not doing that. But
your super chat wasn't high enough, apparently.
Yeah, thank you.
It's too dangerous.
Yeah, I don't know what I need to screen this. And then it looks like we got a late super chat from Reinhard. Thank you, Reinhard. $10. Sorry if I missed it, but a CRJ just collided midair with a Black Hawk over the D.C. airport. Pray for everyone involved, but the crash looked catastrophic. What are you talking about?
Wait, is this the new Iron Dome that Trump built already in action?
What? Hold on a minute. Let's not get news cucked here. What is this?
No, wait, is that new? I think that's old, that clip that you... When is that from?
86 minutes ago.
Regional plane, Black Hawk helicopter collide near Reagan National Airport.
Who was on the plane?
Oh, I thought he was talking about a Black Hawk missile.
Good Lord.
Holy crap.
So I guess we don't even know who was there.
There's got to be pictures.
Yeah.
If you look that up and just click on images.
Let's see. What do we got?
Oh, no.
Yeah,
It's
nothing
nighttime.
good yet.
Yeah.
I mean, it just happened. It looks like 86 minutes ago.
American Airlines.
Wow.
Unbelievable.
How many dead?
I don't know.
I saw something that's saying 100.
Oh, my God. Really?
What?
Jeez. Well, thank you for that bad news, Reinhard. God. All right. And it doesn't look like we got anything on Streamlabs tonight, so I believe we are...
Refresh Power Chat.
Caught up. Let me refresh Power Chat. We're good. That's it for Super Chats.
All right.
tonight.
Well, big shout out to B for the equipment. Big shout out to all the Super Chatters. Rebecca?
Thank you so much for joining us tonight, for having Cameron in studio, Alex Rosen. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Vince. Thank you, me. Because I showed up.
It was a fun show.
It was a fun show. So we will see you guys next Wednesday. Cameron will unfortunately no longer be in studio. So send him hate mail and make him move to Idaho.
Seriously, no, literally bully him.
Bully him into doing it. It'd be great.
We will see you next week. Bye, guys.